We're live and not recording.
Great, thanks, Katie. Can we begin with roll call, please?
Yes, Mr. Antonio,
Here.
Mr. Badger,
Here.
Mr. Bleefeld,
Here.
Ms. Kiavachi,
Here.
Ms. Marianikis,
Here.
Dr. Morris,
Here.
Mr. Walker,
Here.
Mrs. Ginsburg,
Here.
Mia Bonanis,
Here.
and Gavin Lewis Richmond.
Here.
8 present, 0 absent, and 2 student board reps this evening.
Great, thanks, Katie. Will everybody now please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. To the republic for which it stands.
Welcome, everyone, to the December 11th regular public board meeting of the Wissahickon School Board. I do want to make a note before we start. I do anticipate this meeting being rather long. We've had a number of rather long meetings, but I do anticipate this one being longer than usual. A few points of order before we do begin. This is a meeting of the board of directors and the public is invited to attend and at appropriate times participate, but the board does need to be able to conduct the business of the board, including hiring staff, approving expenditures, and working with the district administration to ensure the board's vision for the district that is clearly articulated. Our board has developed policies to ensure the orderly flow of our meetings, and this includes setting times when public comment is to be provided. And we do have 2 public comment periods, one at the beginning of for agenda related items and a second one for school related items. And if you're interested in speaking, we do have these public comment forms that you can complete. And at the appropriate time, we will have public comment. We also hold our meetings in sets so that the work session precedes the voting meeting. So there is an opportunity to provide comments at that meeting the week prior as well. So this ensures we do hear comments prior to voting on any items. And you can also feel free to email the board. Email is the best way to reach us, and you aren't really limited in the amount of time. You can write as long of an email as you like or as short as you desire. We have monthly coffee chats, occasional listening sessions, and on certain bigger issues, we also have other ways to submit comments, such as with the school start times. So during the last meeting, we did allow some leeway with our rules regarding the amount of time for speaking, but to be fair across the board, I do want to note that I will be enforcing the 3-minute rule, and Katie will be using tonight a new buzzer. We'll see how that goes, and that's just to be fair. I want to make sure that I don't give 30 seconds to one person, but not an additional 30 seconds to someone else. So to be fair, we will be enforcing the 3 minutes, and also I do want to note that we can't allow dialogue or questions with speakers at the podium. We invite guests here to our meeting and they expect to engage with our board, and we need to be respectful of their time and expectations. If you see a speaker on our agenda, though, you are welcome to email the board in advance and suggest or request questions be asked of that speaker, and board members will engage with them and ask those questions. And we thank everyone in advance for your patience this evening. Again, I'm sorry it's going to be a long meeting, and with your ongoing partnership in ensuring our board meetings run in an orderly manner. So anyway, we'll see how the buzzer works tonight. I'm excited. All right. In our agenda, we list out our prior meetings. We did meet October 30th in a work session, November 13th for a regular public board meeting, November 20th, we had a curriculum and technology committee, as well as a REAC meeting. December 4th was our annual board reorganization and work session. And earlier this evening, we did have our audit committee meeting. Upcoming meetings, January 8th, we'll have our next regular public board meeting. January 16th will be health, wellness, and safety, as well as REAC. And January 22nd will be facilities and transportation. All right, now we will move into our presentations for this evening. And our first one will be on sleep patterns and school start times. Dr. Mitchell.
Good evening. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Jonathan Mitchell. He's the Assistant Professor of Pediatrics with the University of Pennsylvania. Dr. Mitchell is joining us virtually this evening. Thank you, Dr. Mitchell, and welcome.
Thank you so much. Let me share my hopefully my slides are sharing. not, someone let me know, but it's a pleasure to be here. I really appreciate this opportunity. As you can see, I'll be talking tonight about sleep patterns and school sleep start times, data from the Philadelphia region.
Dr. Mitchell, thank you again for joining us. Just so you know, we can see your presentation slide. So it's in presenter mode on our end. And if that's okay with you, it's okay with us. Just wanted to make you aware.
That's all right. Let me, is that better?
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for pointing that out. So I just want to start with some disclosures. I don't have any conflicts of interest to report. I do have active funding from CHOP and from the National Institutes of Health. And later in this presentation, I'll be sharing some data from a study I led called the Sleep and Growth Study that was funded between 2015 and 2020 that was funded by the NIH. And as a way of outline, I'll cover 3 topics in about 15 minutes. So the first topic will be on the sleep recommendations in childhood. Topic 2 will focus on sleep and school start times. And we'll wrap up by reviewing some of the sleep patterns we've identified in our sleep and growth study from the Philly region. So these are the sleep recommendations for children. As you can see, they're age specific. Starting at ages 4 to 12 months old, it's recommended that children sleep for 12 to 16 hours each day. And as infants grow up into little children, all the way through the teenage years, you can see the sleep duration recommendations here. And most, I think, pertinent for this presentation to highlight that teenagers ages 13 to 18 are recommended to sleep for 8 to 10 hours each day. Sleep duration is just one dimension of sleep health, but it's one of the most studied. And there's been a lot of literature over the past several decades indicating that children who sleep sufficiently do have better health and develop more optimally. Sufficient sleep duration has been associated with improved neurodevelopment, improved mental health, reduced engagement in risky behaviors, improved physical growth, and also improved cardiovascular health, to name but some. There's also key developmental changes in sleep as children age and develop. And again, I'll just highlight the teenage key developmental change in sleep. So with the onset of puberty, teenagers tend to have a preference to go to bed later and also wake later. And this sort of biology that's going on is somewhat misaligned with the environment with which most of our teens grow up in, especially with respect to school start times. So insufficient sleep duration is excessively high in the US. On the left, we have some data from the CDC indicating that the prevalence of short sleep duration nationally is estimated to be 53% among middle schoolers and 65% among high schoolers. And if we zero in on Pennsylvania and Philadelphia specifically, the latest estimates indicate that 83% of high schoolers in Philadelphia have insufficient sleep. So there are goals and targets out there to address this public health problem. One of the Healthy People 2030 goals is to increase the proportion of children who get sufficient sleep. But as you can see from this screenshot grabbed from the Healthy People 2030 website, the current status is little or no detectable change with respect to meeting this goal. So we've got a bit of ways to go to address the problem of excessive insufficient sleep duration. So it's on the one hand, it's a simple problem, but on the other hand, it's quite a complex problem. So the factors that go into determining sleep duration can be quite complex. There's individual level factors, such as the biology of a teenager that we just reviewed. But teenagers, like all of us, we live within families, within a home, within a neighborhood, and there's many factors there that might influence whether or not you get a sufficient night's sleep. In the healthcare setting, where I conduct most of my research, we're actively engaged in how to improve the screening of insufficient sleep in the primary care setting and developing tools to help promote sleep through the healthcare setting. However, I think, again, pertinent to tonight's talk, focusing in on the school setting, I think one of the reasons it's so attractive for me with my public health hat on is that any changes within the school level with respect to sleep has a very large reach. It's mandated in the state of Pennsylvania that any child attending a public school gets exposed to 180 days of schooling per year, and that represents 69% of all weekdays. And it's estimated approximately 90% of K through 12 students do attend public school in the US. And with respect to school start times, it's recommended that schools start at 8:30 a.m. or later. However, nationally, data indicates that most schools start at 8 a.m. in the morning. And again, zeroing in on Pennsylvania, as a state, we're slightly towards the earlier side, with most schools starting at 7:48 a.m. And nationally, 82% of schools in the US start before 8:30 a.m. And in the state of Pennsylvania, it's even higher at 97%. So what happens if you delay school start times with respect to sleep duration? So there's many studies that have focused on this topic. There's lots of papers out there. I think this one in particular, this study was published in JAMA Pediatrics in 2020, shows quite nicely what can happen to sleep timing and sleep duration among adolescents after being exposed to delayed school start times. So this study was conducted in Minnesota. 455 students were enrolled who attended one of 5 public schools. Coming into this study, these schools, the start times were 7:30 a.m. at 4 of them and 7:45 a.m. at 1 other. Prior to changing any school start times, the children were in grade 8 and they were provided with a sleep tracker, which is a device that allows for the estimation of sleep duration without relying on recall. So it's a very robust measure. And this occurred in the spring of 2016. 3 of the schools in this study maintained their 7:30 a.m. school start time. 2 other schools had delayed start times. The first of those schools had a delayed start time at 8:20 a.m., representing a 50-minute delayed start time. And the second started at 8:50 a.m., representing a 65-minute delayed start time. After these either maintenance of school start times were in place or the delayed start times were in place, in grades 10 and grade 11, the students were asked to rewear the sleep trackers to get a nice, robust estimate of their sleep patterns. And these are the data that were generated in this study. So on the y-axis, we have total sleep time in hours and minutes. And on the y-axis, we have the baseline measure in grade 9, the follow-up measure in grade 10, and the follow-up 2 measure in grade 11. And the sleep data from the students attending delayed start schools are in orange, and the comparison schools where sleep times were not changed are in gray. And I'll just quote the authors directly here with respect to the results. So relative to the change observed in the comparison schools, students who attended delayed start schools had an additional mean 41 objectively measured minutes of night sleep at follow-up 1 and 43 minutes at follow-up 2. So this was a really nicely conducted study, and it shows nicely how delaying school start times can indeed have a very positive impact on sleep duration among adolescents. So switching gears, I just want to sort of wrap up the talk by reviewing some of the sleep data we've generated in our Sleep and Growth study. So this study started in 2015 and ended around 2020. We enrolled typically developing children, so they had no health condition or sleep disorder when enrolled. We did require that the participants attend a study visit at CHOP in Philadelphia. So most participants were living in the southeastern Pennsylvania or southern New Jersey regions. All students we enrolled were in 8th grade at baseline, their final year of middle school, and we reassessed them 1 year later when they transitioned to 9th grade into high school. And we enrolled a total of 112 teens into this study. So we first brought them into our lab and we asked them to complete surveys. They were then sent home with a wearable device, so we could also use the very robust measure to measure sleep patterns in the home setting, and they wore the watch over 14 days. The watch was returned and we downloaded the data, and we took a very careful approach to clean that data, score that data with valid algorithms to generate estimates of sleep duration and sleep timing. And now we have lots of data with which to have fun with in our lab. So these are the sleep duration data. So in the dark shade, we have the estimated sleep duration on school nights. And in the light shade, we have the estimated sleep duration on average on non-school nights. So you can see on average in 8th grade, sleep duration averaged about a little over 6.5 hours in 8th grade versus 7.5 hours on weekend nights. There's about a little under a 1 hour difference just between school and non-school nights. Interestingly, sleep duration declined from 8th to 9th grade on school nights by about 30 minutes on average. However, that decline was not observed on the non-school nights. With respect to meeting the age-specific sleep duration guidelines, 9% of students on school nights in 8th grade were recorded as sufficient sleep, whereas only 6% of school nights captured achieved that threshold. And strikingly, I think the proportion of sufficient sleep nights were much higher on non-school nights. 38% of nights were recorded as sufficient on non-school nights in 8th grade, and 36% of nights in 9th grade. In green, we have the sunset data. So on average in 8th grade, the children were going to bed around 11 p.m. And strikingly, we see another 1 hour difference here where average time of onset was midnight on non-school nights in 8th grade. And both school nights and non-school nights, we see this shift in 9th grade to later timing of sleep onset by about 20 to 15 minutes, both in 8th and 9th grade, and both on, school and non-school nights. The sleep offset data here are in blue. You can see on average in 8th grade, the teens in our study were waking up around 6:35 a.m. and that remains stable into 9th grade, maybe a slight decline there. And on non-school nights in the light shade, you can see a vast difference in when the teens in our study were getting out of bed, approximately 8:30 a.m. on non-school nights in 8th grade, and shifting to even later, close to 9 a.m. Wait times in 9th grade. Also at our study visit, when the teens in our study were completing the survey, we asked the participants to recall when they typically left the house in the morning to travel to school and how long it took them to commute to school. So here we see in 8th grade, our participants in our study reported on average of leaving home around 7:20 a.m. in the morning and arriving at school around 7:40 a.m. So they've got about a 20-minute commute there in 8th grade. There's a earlier time on average of leaving the home in the morning at 7 a.m. So they're getting up earlier and going to school earlier, but the commute time's about the same, an average 20 minutes in our sample, and they're arriving at school around 7:20 a.m. So just to put these data in the context of the recommendation of school start times being 8:30 or later, we can see here the proportion of children falling into these 30-minute categories. And you can see in 8th grade, in green, 14% of the teens reported arriving at school 8:30 a.m. or later, whereas strikingly, this falls to 1% in 9th grade. And equally strikingly, in orange, towards the left, you can see that 0% of the teens in our study arrived at school 7 a.m. or earlier in 8th grade, but this increased sharply to 16% in 9th grade. We also asked the teens in our study how they travel to school. They could select multiple options. Very few teens in our sample reported using a bike or public transport to arrive at school. In 8th grade, half the children reported using the school bus as part of their commute to school, whereas this dropped to 33% in 9th grade. 43% of the teens in 8th grade reported using a car as a means to help get to school, and this increased to 62% in 9th grade. And walking was 17 or 18%, remaining pretty constant across both grades. So just to summarize, there are established sleep duration recommendations for children to enhance health and development. The school setting has a large reach, and delaying school start time is a key strategy to increase sleep duration among adolescents. In our Sleep and Growth study, we found that sleep duration was shortest on school nights. School night sleep duration declined by approximately 30 minutes per night from 8th to 9th grade, and only 1% of ninth graders arrived at school at 8 a.m. or later. And I think the take-home message, if you were to take one thing from this talk, is if more schools in the region adopted delayed school start times, this would help to increase sleep duration and related development in adolescence. And I really appreciate your time. And if you have any questions or thoughts, I'd be happy to stay on and answer those.
Great. Thank you so much for that presentation, Dr. Mitchell. So yeah, I'll start us off with some questions. So you mentioned, I believe it was 65% of high schoolers nationwide get inadequate sleep compared to, I think you said 83% in the Philadelphia region. Is that
Yeah, that's correct, I believe.
And what do you attribute to the higher percentage here in our particular region?
Yeah, it's a great question. One thing to point out a little further that I didn't mention, there's a lot of states with no data, right? So
Right,
it's an incomplete picture. But specifically, I mean, this is schools, I believe, in the city of Philadelphia, not necessarily the suburban school districts. Yeah, so it's, I don't know if I have a great answer of why specifically it's so high, but it's quite alarming that we do live in a region where sleep duration is so prevalent. It might be unfair just to pick on one city. If we were to select the major city in most of these states here, it could be a similar picture. So it could be city versus suburban versus rural difference as well. So that'd be something I would look into further.
Okay. And the other question I had, so you mentioned, 8:30 is obviously the best time. But you mentioned, I think you said most PA schools on average are starting around 7:48, US on average about 8 o'clock. But 82% nationally are starting before 8:30. I think you said 97% of Pennsylvania. I'm hoping I got that statistic right. I'm sorry.
Yep.
Oh, you have it up there. Okay.
You got it absolutely right. Yep.
So, I think we've heard a lot about the science, and we're hearing from you as well. Why, in your opinion, are more districts not looking at putting school start times pushing them back, to 8:30? Like, what have you found in your research why that they're not moving in that direction? Why are they staying earlier?
Yeah, I think so. These data are from 2011 to 2012. Those were these figures were the most recent that I could discover with my search. Of course, if the CDC were to do a similar survey today, these numbers might be slightly different. I think there are barriers. The logistics of changing a school start time is no mean feat. My bias, I've done a lot of research in this area, so my knee-jerk reaction, it should be a no-brainer. We should be working across all school districts to make this happen. But I know it's not as straightforward as that. My school district, I live in Delco. Our school district is at a similar process. We've got a board and a team of people together to figure out should we do likewise. But it's a challenging decision to make, and the disruption to regular schedules has to be taken into consideration. And but I think overall, I think this can be done. I think lessons can be learned from other school districts who have successfully done this. But it is interesting that at least in 2011 to 2012, that Pennsylvania, we're certainly a little behind the curve here compared to other states.
Right. Well, thank you so much. Other questions, comments? Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Mitchell. In your research, if you're comparing similar districts in terms of socioeconomic or rural, urban, et cetera, is there a difference between graduation rates and academic performance for districts starting later?
Yeah, that's a great question. My understanding and reading the literature is that with delaying school start times, you do see a slight boost in academic metrics like graduation rates, grade point average. And it's relatively small. I think it's hard to measure. But the data does indicate that academic outcomes do improve, which, you know, it certainly is in the interest of a school district. You know, so I think that's certainly one outcome to take into consideration here.
Other questions? Deanna?
Yeah, Dr. Mitchell, thank you so much. I just had a quick question. I assume you have a great interest in public health policy, as do I. Do you have any insight on any other thing that a school district could do that could improve the health of their students like this kind of initiative? Is there any other thing that we could do? Is my question.
Like beyond like sleep health, but just generally health in general?
Yeah, like sleep health. You mentioned, you know, growth, the way that lack of sleep negatively impacts children. Is there anything else, you know, public health wise we could do to help our students that you're aware
of? I mean, the other areas that I can speak to in research, you know, other nutrition related behaviors such as physical activity levels, diet related behaviors. So physical activity is another key area that I research. So, you know, PE classes, recess time for activity, to be engaged in more activity, safer commuting to school via biking or walking, things of that nature. I've come across in my research and are things that I'm interested in. You know, nutrition, you know, foods that are available within schools, etc. Are certainly things to look at. But yeah, those are the areas that I research the most. You know, obviously there's others, but I wouldn't necessarily be able to speak to that in any great detail.
No, that's really helpful. Thank you so much.
Other questions or comments? All right, not seeing any. Thank you so much again, Dr. Mitchell, for your time this evening. We really appreciate it.
Yep, appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right, we'll move on now to our next school start and end zone presentation.
Okay. Thank you. This is the presentation that was scheduled for last Monday. Just got postponed. And I think tonight is actually a good night for this, in the sense that Dr. Mitchell laid the groundwork very nicely for us as to answering the question why we are examining the possibility of starting schools later. And there's a tremendous amount of research that shows it's a good thing if it can be done. And what we're doing now is, in this course of last couple of presentations and tonight, we're looking at the, as he put it, the barriers, or in our case, I mean, the challenges that particularly pertain to Wissahickon, because each district is different. This first presentation tonight will be after school activities and athletics. This is just a reminder of when the other ones were. The schedule and the busing were previously. Tonight is both 3 and 4 on there. And then we'll have the month of January to look at big picture things and review overall and continue the feedback conversations in advance of the board vote on February 5th. This is just a review of the current start and end times, and then also the two options under consideration. As you recall, the distinction between the two is the tiering of busing. Option number 1 keeps us with our double tiering construct, and option number 2 would switch us to a triple tiering concept. In either of the two options, the high school level anyway starts at 8:30, and in one of them, the middle school does as well. So the first part of tonight is athletics. Now varsity athletes are dismissed about 9 contests. That's varsity. It depends on the sport. Other levels have fewer contests in a given season, away that is. Now our athletes at the high school miss between 50 and 90 minutes on those away dates, and it's largely because of our critical bus shortage. That yes, they have to get to the away schools in time for the contest, of course, but in our case, we actually have to leave earlier than would be ideal because we have to have those buses back in order to carry out their normal dismissal runs. And this is the way it is now. Which class is missed, I think, is key. We have at the high school, as you know, a rotating drop, so which you don't have the same class at the same time in the afternoon. And so it's not the case that you always miss math for an away contest. It's also not the case that we can hardwire you into study hall or something last period because of the drop nature. If we went to the double tiering option, the class missed time would be about the same because we don't need those buses back any earlier. That second tier would be, we'd still have 2 tiers. But in triple tiering, and this is a problem, the amount of class time missed will increase. Because as you recall, the triple tiering, middle school is the first tier. So we have to get those buses back in time to carry out that first tier of dismissal for the middle school students. And the high school will be the second middle tier, but they'd have to actually go earlier in order to, and we just don't have more buses. We can perhaps persuade some opponents to move start times later, maybe some daylight constraints. What would help really though, and this was discussed at the last meeting, was a critical mass of other districts all in this together doing this so that we're not the lone wolf. Other aspects of the impact on athletics. Right now we have some before school practices and workouts, typically weight training, some swimming, those teams in the pool. They might increase unless we explicitly prohibit them. It's been brought up that shortening practices is an option to create more time. Yes, that is an option. It's not being recommended by those involved in the sports program, but it is something much like the review of homework duration and homework amount is a possibility. It's something that can create more time after school. It's just that I wouldn't recommend doing one of those things in isolation for the purposes of starting school later. I would recommend looking at those things holistically as the whole, as how they would impact everything, the whole student life. Right now, it's hard to fill coaching positions. About 60% or so are what we call adjunct, which are non-employees. And it could be the case that actually might help attract adjunct coaches because they would have a little more time to get here before these practices start, games start. It might make it harder to recruit people who need to get home earlier, be they employees or adjuncts. It just it's hard to tell. Moving to other extracurriculars, like clubs, they typically meet after school now, and they would move later in both the options, except for at the middle school, they wouldn't, because remember, middle school in option 2 would still be that tier 1. Right now, we don't have too many meetings before school, some select music groups, the fans club, etc. That might increase with later times, again, unless we explicitly prohibit it. The late bus is something I think is very important. It allows students who don't have transportation options otherwise to stay after school, maybe for a sport, maybe for a club, maybe for extra help. Right now we have on average 100 students or so each day. And one change would be that Tuesday, Thursday bus would have to go to 5:30 just because, again, of the bus shortages. Shifting gears slightly, we go to work and childcare. Students who work after school will be impacted. You can either work 1 hour less or get home from work 1 hour later. That's a statement of the obvious, I guess. It might help chances of getting a job, though, if employer needs a worker to stay later. So it's a possibility that's good for job availability. It's also might hinder availability if the employer needs the student or the worker to start earlier. It just depends on the employer and the job in question. Neither of the options under consideration are flipping the start times. You may remember way back when we started thinking about this, the options out there are to have the younger students start earlier. That's called flipping the times. We're not considering those anymore. There's a pretty clear indication from focus groups and whatnot that was not a fit here. But anyway, when that happens, then childcare, older siblings being available to care for younger siblings is an issue. So it's not an issue here. It might be an issue slightly if some younger middle school students need care. And for an option too, but I'd say generally speaking, because we're not flipping anybody times, sibling availability for childcare is not impacted here. Now we are going to talk about childcare more broadly in the next presentation here in a second. So just to conclude this one, both are still, as we've mentioned, both are 8:30 for the high school. There will be impact on after school activities. It kind of depends on a number of factors. Tonight will be the final set of topics that childcare in the North Monco Technical Career Center. And all of these presentations are available on YouTube, and we are actively monitoring our feedback button on the website. And we share it, we collate it, share it out with all the board members. So that's definitely an opportunity to share thoughts. But before I move on to childcare in North Monco.
Yeah, so Jim, to start off the question. So when Radnor presented to us last week, they seemed to have like an idea, like finger on the pulse of like where their students worked. Like they would talk to employers, they tried to figure out whether or not it was going to really affect their employment. Do we have a sense or an idea of like where our students work? Like, are there major employers in the area that we know where our students work? Have we been in touch with them? Have we found out, are you going to have those later shifts for our students to work? Are you going to continue to hire them if they're going to show up an hour later?
Well, a couple thoughts. One, we're a bigger geographic region than Radnor, and we have about 50% more students. So it's not going to be as easy to contact employers. I don't know what percentage of the Radnor student body works after school. We have, I would venture to guess, a higher percentage. And we have probably a wider geographic span of places where our students can work and do. I don't think Radnor contended that they were able to talk with employers and say it wouldn't be a problem. I also don't think it would be a problem here. I think it would just be working one less hour. I don't think, and maybe, and again, it could be the case that employers like that you can work less hour or work an hour later, to get your 4 or 5 hours in or whatever. I don't think we can make any generalizations about employers, but I don't think it's necessarily a negative for students. It's just going to be different.
And what about the sport? Same thing, Radnor seemed to have an understanding of like which sports specifically it was going to affect them most. And that some sports they thought it might affect, but it didn't really end up affecting them as much. Do we have an idea of like what types of teams it's going to affect more so than others?
We do. It's going to be the fall and spring sports, and those that similar to Radnor, if you're more outdoors is because of daylight, there'll be say lacrosse, soccer, not football. Football is definitely not affected here, same as in Radnor. Golf is one, tennis is probably. In our case, we have a pretty wide range of destinations for our Suburban One League opponents. I'm not sure about Radnor's league or whatever, but if we go over here to Upper Dublin, it won't be that much of an impact. And then we could probably work with them just for times. When we go up to some places in Bucks County, then it's different.
Well, you've spoken with some of your counterparts, I'm sure, at the other districts. I mean, what's your sense on their willingness to work with us on times?
Well, what they say publicly and what they'll do is two different things. Because remember, when they adjust their time later, they impact all of their families, all their students, and all their coaches. So they can say that and likely they would. And again, I feel like our partnership with Upper Dublin might be a little more amenable to friendly adjustments than some of the districts that aren't even in our county.
Thank you. Other questions?
Yeah, Jim, thanks so much. You said that the high school has a rotating like drop ad schedule so that there can never be a set study hall or gym period at the end of the day. Is that a possible thing that we can possibly change, or is that set in stone at this point?
Yes and no. It's certainly something that can be changed. In the high school's case, the schedule, the nature of its schedule, the rotating drop is set in the collective bargaining agreement with the union. That was done, I don't know how many years ago. That can be changed, but it would require bargaining.
So like in July of 2025.
Or yes, you could reopen at any time. I would not recommend reopening for just that one reason. But yes, the next time that the agreement is up for negotiations, we could add that to the list of topics.
Okay. You said that the shortening sports practice was not recommended by those involved. I guess I'm kind of wondering what that means, because if sports practice is, it would kind of be a deal breaker for me, honestly, if youth sports couldn't access facilities at normal times. My vision when this started was that there was like an understanding that we weren't just looking to shift a kid's day back. We were looking to compact their day so that they still had time to do what they needed to do and get sleep. That's the goal, I think, right? And if we're impacting other kids, like Radner had mentioned, a lot of community children use the facilities, and that's the same thing in Wissahickon. A lot of kids use the fields, the pool, etc. So pushing that back would really impact those students negatively. Right now, we have middle school students who practice at Wissahickon High School for swimming until 9 p.m. at night. I find that unacceptable as it is. We can't push that. So I guess I'm wondering who said it's not, 3 hours of practice is absurd. Right, like you can get in a good high level athletic practice in 2 hours, absolutely. So who are these people and are they willing to work with us?
So these people are our employees and our adjunct coaches, and yes, they do want to work with us. And I do think that conversation is a worthwhile one, the same as the conversation about homework is. I just don't think that we should be making any decisions on either of those two things without bringing in coaches and teachers. And then also without having a thought about how it would, if we say to them, you must have, 20 minutes shorter practice. Do you think that will impact your team's ability to compete on level footing? They might say, I know they're going to say, yes, they'll impact it, but then we would ask, well, how much does, you'd have to have this robust conversation with coaches in the room at one time.
Did you have that conversation?
Yes, and they'll tell us that they don't want to do it.
But I guess I'm wondering why we wouldn't go back and say, listen, I understand your perspective. More is better, which is not right, but that if a child gets more sleep, they're going to perform better. That has also been driven home to us in these presentations.
And we could, and again, they'll do what we tell them to do. It's just that directing it from above for reasons that they either don't understand or don't agree with isn't necessarily the right play. No pun
And
intended.
how many times have you walked them through the science and the information and helped them understand the overarching objective here? Because it sounds like that piece might have been skipped yet again.
So that piece was not skipped.
Yeah, well, it doesn't sound like there was a comprehensive conversation done with all of the coaches to talk them through this. You went to one person, had the conversation with one person, and that's how this decision was made.
I don't know how do you conclude I came to one person. That's not correct. A and B, one of the things we have, the problems we have is that there's an assumption that those of us who believe in the science, if we just spend enough time with other people, they'll believe in it also. And it doesn't always work. Sometimes people say, yeah, I don't believe in that.
Yeah, well, maybe if we had an appropriate conversation and structure around this, maybe we would have gotten there. And then how many of our students in our high school attend, are able to attend a sport and get home with the bus based on the times that we're finishing?
Varsity level, not many.
Right.
The lower levels more so.
No, not even on the lower levels.
Yes, ma'am. The
No,
middle school
no,
students are
my
able.
students play at the high school.
Okay, high school, fair. Middle school
Both.
students can. And sometimes it just depends if the practice is long or not, or if there's a game or not. Just depends.
No, this is just for practice.
Okay.
So, okay. Great.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Amy,
Marcia, go ahead.
I want to make sure we're doing the right thing. And I want to make sure we're thinking through this. If the whole exercise is to push the start day back to allow our students to have more sleep, But because of activities in the morning that won't be pushed back because of practice or even lengthening practice, it doesn't appear we would have accomplished that goal. Is there an understanding, maybe you sort of touched on that, but is there an understanding of those who will be dealing with this early in the morning that the whole goal is not to have them in early? It is to push everything back. And if we're not pushing it back and all we're doing is pushing back the school day, then we're still getting a lot of kids here early to practice, which may be the prerogative of the coach, but that doesn't accomplish what we set out to do here over these many months. And then on the back end, all these students who are then going to work later, maybe they get a job easier because an employer will be happy that some students can work later, but then they're getting home later, starting meals, homework, studying later. I guess at the end of the day, I'm just trying to figure out, with all of this exercise and what we're talking about, have we determined whether we're going to actually lengthen our students' ability to sleep? Or have we just shifted things around and caused disruption, which is what each of our presenters have said you have to understand there will be?
I think with regard to the before school part, we would have to legislate that that's not allowed unless, say, under very special circumstances, so that we don't have that effect you're talking about. After school, yes, we could look to shorten the practices if that's something that the community thinks is a good idea. If they choose to work an extra hour, that's nothing we can do about that.
Well, it's not choosing to work an extra hour. If they get home an hour later,
right,
and they have to go to work an hour later, it's not saying I want an additional hour to make more money. I don't have the option, and if I need to work the same hours to pay for me, my family, whatever I may need, I don't see how we accomplish that goal, and that's my concern, is that we're spending a lot of time doing this. We're going to disrupt a lot of people's lives. Are we accomplishing the goal that we set out to do, which is a good one? We all want the best interest of the kids, which is more sleep. We get that. But we can't live in a vacuum either. And each one of these speakers said it's just one component. And I want to make sure that if we're going to do this and spend all of the money and the resources, we have to ensure, because otherwise it will have been for naught, that we're pushing things back so everybody can get more sleep. That was the goal. So I want to make sure of that as we go through the end of the process, that whether it's our coaches, our advisors, everybody that has a stake in this understands that there's a purpose to this. It's not just to push things back and give you more opportunity to have them come into practice earlier or stay later. The goal is the goal. And if we can't accomplish it, then there's really no need to do this, I think. But that's just my opinion.
Other questions or comments? Yeah, Steve.
Thanks for the presentation. Obviously, a big part of this is bus scheduling. And can you help me understand, as a new board member, how was that process looked at in terms of trying to redo the bus schedules? Was it just shifting, the bus schedule for elementary and high school, or was there more look at creative ways to redo the bus scheduling? And I'm sorry, should I be looking away?
So we can be creative. I can be more creative if the board says increase, the amount that we'll pay per hour to a contracted person by $10 an hour. So at some point, the answer is we have great difficulty in this region attracting bus drivers. So we are not assuming that we are going to have a great deal more ability to attract bus drivers if we change something. And we are fearful that we may have less, but we don't know. The creative part is we look through every single run, decoupled them from the non-public runs if they are currently coupled, and tried to recreate them on an individual basis to determine whether they would work in both a triple tier and a double tier scenario, in both AM and PM, under the various scenarios. So that's as creative as we got. We got to the conclusion that we would have to either add a little bit in the way of assets, or more in the way of assets. That is a detailed analysis of how we did it. I don't think we can be any more creative unless there are constraints that are changed, and I don't foresee that we are.
Just to follow up on that regarding busing, another thing I liked from the Radnor presentation is they then found efficiencies with regard to their busing by looking at, pulling aside, I think they said they bused like 70 different private schools or something like that. Have we looked at options with regard to like trying to find more efficient ways to do busing? Do we even like partner with neighboring schools? Like if we're taking students to one private school, do we look to see if the neighboring school does it, if we can kind of do it together?
Sure. So one thing that I did look up after the presentation was just how much more Radnor spent per pupil than we did on transportation. And they spend significantly more. So their ability to be creative is already allowed based on the fact that they probably already have more buses per student. In fact, I know they do than we do. Could we perhaps say, hey, our district has the ability, so say there's a bus that starts in Upper Dublin, goes through our district and heads over to Norristown. We could ask Upper Dublin to pick up those students. That would be a saver to us. But we would have to convince the Upper Dublin parents that that is acceptable because the bus is going to take more time when it stops to pick up our children. That's a hard sell to them because they don't really care about our efficiency. And those types of things have been tried before, but there's a pro and a con. If you think that Upper Dublin is interested in that, I think we could have that conversation. But that is it. Mostly the time that people are on buses, parents want to minimize that. The way to minimize that is you have more buses going to the same place. So.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I'm sorry, excuse me. I have two things, if that's okay. So I want to go back to the working aspect, because I feel like I want to make sure we're not generalizing when we say working an hour less would be beneficial for students, because working an hour less, like a difference of $15 could be enough for a student to get another job, which wouldn't, again, be giving them more sleep like we want them to. So like, I want to make sure that we acknowledge those students, because I do know a few who do have to work to sustain their families. And then the second one's a question. So you said for like the three-tier busing thing to like work so that students don't miss a lot of class for athletics, that we can get other schools to participate. How feasible do you think that would be to like get other schools to go with us?
Yeah, we actually are. That's a great question, Gavin. We're taking up a resolution tonight. The board is to encourage this kind of thing, either statewide or region-wide anyway. The next thing we're going to talk about is North Monco Technical Career Center, and that would be a perfect example of something that would benefit from a regional approach. Because if we're the only one or one of two or something in our area or our county or our tech schools radius, or in our athletic league, it's probably not going to be too viable. But if we do, I don't know what the chances are, because every community is different. I mean, we are different from Radnor in our size. Methacton might be different from us in their geographics. I don't know, but everybody has different considerations. If it's legislated from somebody, say in Harrisburg, well, that would take care of that.
Other questions? If not, we'll move into the next presentation.
Okay. And now we go to presentation number 4, which is childcare and the North Monco Technical Career Center. And we've already gone over all of this. This is the same slide, just updating with tonight's speaker, Dr. Mitchell. These are the same options that we looked at previously. Both options will have childcare implications for younger students. By that, I'm going to go K to 5 students. Now, these are figures from this year. We have before and after care provided to 318 students. You see the breakdown. Before care is about an hour and 20 minutes. It costs about $239 a month, and we have 92 or so students now. That includes all four elementary schools. Sorry. Aftercare is much more heavily subscribed. It's much longer. It costs a little bit more a month, and some families sign up for both. The number would be about 50, and they're included in those other numbers. So really 318 students total are affected. Some go to both, about 50 go to both. The impact would be the same for either option number 1 or 2, since the elementary school is in both cases starts at the same time later. So before school would then jump to a little over 2 hours, and that would be the more expensive per month. And after would be a little bit less, so it'd be less expensive. Combined would be the same. These figures have been confirmed with YMCA, and we'll talk here in a little second. There's other options, not just YMCA, but for the most part, our students use this one the most. Sometimes they'll change their rates, but kind of nominal. We have ironed out the capacity issues that this board heard about at the beginning of the year. There are no more wait lists. And the YMCA has assured us that they can actually fully staff it if either of those options is selected, even if the number of students before school doubles. It's logical to assume that there will be some number of more students in the morning, since there'd be more time required then. Probably about the same number of kids in the afternoon, since it's really about the end time as much as anything else. If there is a need for younger middle school students, that can, like typically grade 6, not too often does that happen, but just in case, that they can make that available. And we do know that there are many other options. YMCA is just one. There's the homework clubs, there's private companies. It's very hard to reliably assess that. But if either option is selected, both have the elementary school starting later. So the morning will be a little bit more of the issue as opposed to the afternoon. North Monaco Technical Career Center. As you may know, there's kind of 3 options. There's an AM option. We have about 32 students in that. Now they get it, and now it's just the same. They go into school and back home with their regular run, just as the rest of their high school peers. There's minimal impact now at the high school. There's a few students with IPs who have social studies, but that's just for logistics reasons. So really not much impact at this point. Another half-day option is the PM. About 37 of our students do that, and this busing impacts the same. And again, this is what we have now currently. And we have about 13 students at tech school who go full-time. And busing is the same, and there's really no impact because their entire days at North Monaco. Now, keep in mind, North Monaco serves 5 districts, and all of us are different. We have different school calendars. We have different school start times. We drive the people at North Monaco crazy as it is, trying to schedule all of us and accommodate all of our various needs. They do a pretty good job, and our students now, as you can see, maybe it's at 80 or so, I think have a real good experience there. If we do our double tiering, the morning school session will have a separate bus in the mornings. If you recall, when we talked about busing options here, the double tiering one would mean that we'd have to run a separate run for all of our private school students because they have to get to school wherever their private school starts. And North Monaco would be the same. So we would have those buses go through, get the North Monaco kids, and then they would go to the tech school that way. The impact is their whole day is going to be longer. It's not longer in class. It's not longer instruction-wise, but because they have to get to the tech school earlier and they're going to go home with all their high school peers later, that's about 40 minutes or so in the middle of the day for study hall. And that has to do with the high school schedule and the rotating drop. And so the morning students would get there. Their afternoon classes wouldn't be ready to start yet. So they'd have a little study hall before the afternoon cycle starts. The half-day students are in the afternoon would be the same as all other high school students. So that's the busing's on the impact. The problem here is they would need to eat lunch on the bus to North Monco. There's no other way to do it with our schedule and North Monco's requirements for the PM session. And they would get back to it. We'd take their high school classes in the morning, the first half of the day, whether it's period 1, 2, 3, or 4, whichever 3. And then they'd get me to get on the bus to get to North Monco in time to start the North Monco, because remember, they're not starting later. Their PM session starts the same time it always has. So the PM students would have that experience there, and then they would get back to the high school where they have to wait a little bit, calling it a mini study hall, not quite 40 minutes, but some number of minutes at the end of the day before their dismissal buses go. And the full day students would have the same as the morning. They'd have a separate morning bus route, and their impact would be about the same too, because again, they'd have a earlier start at the tech school, later end at the high school. So they have about 40 minutes at the end of the day for a mini study hall. Option 2, triple tiering. The AM students would come into school on middle school buses. Remember, that would be first tier, so we don't have to run separate buses across the community to get our students in, but they would be on the bus with middle school students, and they could go home with their regular high school students. And this, again, they'd have a little longer day because they have to start tech earlier. And this is the same impact for the PM students. They have to eat lunch on the bus again and get the end of the day mini study hall. And the full day session is the same as the morning. They would come into school on the middle school buses, home on their normal high school dismissal, and their day is a little bit longer with the end of the day mini study hall. So some other considerations for the tech school. Any future changes to the high school bell schedule, not the schedule, not the nature of the schedule, but just what starts when, could impact these things slightly. Probably more importantly, a change away from the rotating drop nature of the schedule, which would help us with our athletes missing time at the end of the day, would impact this in a pretty substantial way. Because then you could hardwire a course at the end of the day, and we could take the edge off of some of these impacts. I think a concern with this is, will that longer student day, again, it's not more time in class, it's just longer sort of at school or on a bus. Will that discourage students from North Monco? That's something we absolutely do not want to do. And something that's not up here, but to Gavin's point earlier, is that if, say, all 5 of our sending districts decided to go in coalition and all start later, then the tech school could start later. And then a lot of these problems for our tech school students would go away. But we would need all 5 of them, because if 2 of us did say and 3 didn't, I actually don't know what the tech school, how they would handle it. So again, everything's starting at 8:30 for the high school. There is impact on childcare and North Monco. We have these January sessions where there's additional discussion and feedback, not just in these topics, but anything we've been talking about. All this stuff is on YouTube, and please, if you have feedback that you haven't already submitted, it's very easy to do, and we absolutely do collate it and consider it.
Great, thank you for that presentation. So I'm curious, in looking at the times for childcare, do we get a sense of like when the kids typically leave? Like, do they have like contracts that say, like, I know when my kids were in daycare years ago, like we had to give like an estimate of a time, like when our child was leaving. And my kids were in the Y aftercare for a while. I don't recall if our contract specified a time or not. But I know when I picked my kids up at 6, they were often the only ones standing at the door waiting for me. So do we have a sense of how many kids are like actually there, like between 4 and 6?
I don't know at what point in the afternoon they're picked up. It's also the flexibility in the morning too. You do not have to drop off at the beginning. Obviously, you drop off when you need to drop off, and the staff is pretty good and flexible. I know they also don't adjust their rates though. If you only take advantage of an hour in the afternoon or something, you pay the full boat.
And I'm just wondering also, like Radnor said, they took this as an opportunity again to like look at other options. And I don't want to put you on the spot because I know you are on the board of the Y. But, I mean, have we looked at other options? Like I know like Hopper or Horsham, I think their aftercare goes to 6:30. Have we looked at other options to provide other childcare options at our school?
I'm quite sure that Y could extend theirs to 6:30 and pay their people a bit more and charge a little bit more. I don't think that's the issue. I think the issues we used to have were they didn't have the staff and the room at the right time, especially in the afternoon. But to my understanding, and maybe if someone is on a wait list and I don't know it, but it's been represented to me that all the wait lists have been cleared.
And oh, and as far as like the dollar amount, I think they should look at those dollar amounts because it's almost like they're both almost around 2 hours. I mean, if we would go to this, I think they should look at those amounts because I think like the dollar amounts should almost be a little bit closer. I don't think that morning amount should go up quite as much as they indicated.
I will pass that along.
Thank you. All right, other questions or comments?
So my understanding of the Y aftercare has always been, it's like impossible to get in. People get up like early in the morning and like, I guess now it's an online thing, but they used to wait in line at the Y. Is that gone now? Because this is one of my big concerns, whether we change time or not, I really need that to go away. I really need working parents to have guaranteed childcare at our schools for them. That needs to be fixed like right away.
It is my understanding, I don't know if you've heard differently, Wade, that it has been. There definitely were problems. There definitely wait lists to this whole anomaly of having to get up and you know, have coffee at 4 a.m. just to make sure you're on the list. My understanding, those have been resolved. A lot of that had to do with rehiring or hiring or rehiring after the pandemic, enough staff to do it safely. It's my understanding that it has been resolved, but again, if anyone has different information, please tell me.
Yeah, I don't have any additional information, but the other constraint that we put upon it is our own, which is generally, we haven't wanted an after-school program to occur in a K-5 classroom that is already happening because of the problems that occur if another group comes into that classroom and something is missing in that classroom. There is a lot of problems. So we've tried to make it so that the after-school programs occur in non-K-5 classrooms. So then it is somewhat limited just by how many other classrooms exist like that. So again, if the board were to say, hey, we are okay with a bunch of parents in whatever 5th grade class that we're going to stick them in, and we're okay with those complaints, that would actually open up more classrooms if the Y would be able to staff it. That hasn't been something that we have chosen to do in a great manner because of the problems that we've had in the past.
But are there other space, this is a discussion for a different day, but other spaces are, I think we do need to ensure that we have that capacity for our families, because that is like the number one thing that I hear from parents in terms of like childcare and school. I mean, these school out, no matter when school start happens, it's inconvenient for everybody. No one works 8:30 to 3:10 and has, you know, a half day here and there. That's not a job, right? So we just have to really, I just feel like no matter what happens, we have to ensure that this gets solved. Thank you so much.
Other comments or questions? The only thing I would ask is North Monco, like, I hate to keep referring to Radnor, but we did hear from them and I know they had like pretty comprehensive plans. What did they do to address their version of North Monco? Like, how did they get around like not having a longer day for their students?
They a different county. So they, my understanding is their intermediate unit is more involved with their tech school operation. And so it might be the case that they don't have 5 different ones or 3 or how many we have. But if you remember, that was the one item that they admitted they don't have a solution to. And it's because I'm sure they have more than a handful of districts sending it to the same tech school. So they have the same problems that we do.
It is a county-based system there.
Okay.
Yeah, we also have a really long commute to North Monco Tech Center. We're way closer to Central in Plymouth Meeting or Norristown geographically. But our kids go all the way up to North Penn, which is a heck of a commute. It's, you know, it's a shame.
Nothing else? All right, well, thank you again for this presentation, Jim. All right. So now we'll move on to the school director candidate interviews. So I'm going to talk a little bit first about the process, just so that everybody's on the same page with how we're going to do this. So we have, I believe it's 12 candidates. What we're going to have everyone do is come up and we're going to have you give a 2-minute speech that's going to cover the issues of why you want to serve on school board and why you think you would be a good school board member. So everybody's gonna have 2 minutes to do that. Katie is gonna have the new timer going. Please also, when you approach, obviously mention your name, but also note where you reside, because we need to make sure that you live within the Wissahickon School District. And the resumes do reflect that everyone did, but we do want to make sure that you state that you do live within the Wissahickon boundaries. And I do want to just also let everyone know that's coming forth because we did get some questions about the application process and what's involved. So this is an unpaid position. So anyone thought it was a paid position. This is not a paid position. All right, I was expecting people to leave, just joking. We do typically have 2 meetings a month, a work session, which generally runs a little bit longer, and then a voting session, which is tonight's meeting. And it's a little bit of an abnormal voting session. It's going to be a little bit longer, but typically that one's a little bit shorter. But lately our meetings have been running about 2 to 3 hours in the evening. And some nights we do have exec session prior to that meeting or a committee meeting. And then usually throughout the month, we do have committee meetings, which every board member is usually a member of 2 to 3 committees. So generally, I would say throughout the month, probably around 10 hours of time for the position is what I would estimate. Let me think if there's anything else. Okay, so as far as the process, again, we're gonna have you come forth. We're gonna have you give your 2 minutes. Everybody's gonna wait in the lobby area. We'll call you each and individually to give your 2-minute speech. Then the board is going to each select up to 5 people. They don't have to select 5. They could pick 1 person. If they only like 1 person, they could select 2 people, up to 5. Katie is then going to tally the votes and let us know who our top 5 people are. Those top 5 are going to come back in then for a further interview. We're going to do a 10-minute interview with each of those individuals. And then after that interview, we have public comment, and then we will vote. Okay, so make sure I have the process down there. All right, any board members have any questions about that process? No questions about the process. Okay, and Paul is with us virtually, and he is going to share his votes with me. And then I will get those to Katie so she can include those in her tally. All right, so why don't we have all of our candidates go out into the hall. Katie, do you want to go out there and just make sure you know who is who? You're going to do it. Great. Thank you, Wade. Yes, that would be great, just so we know who's coming in. All right, Matt Eisen?
Yes.
All right.
Okay. Good evening. Thank you. My name is Matthew Eisen. I live in Bluebell, Pennsylvania, so within the Whippane Township. Reason why I'm interested in this opportunity, I'm an alumnus of the district. I'm a parent of 4, 3 in Stony Creek, 1 in the middle school. And I want to ensure that the district continues to provide the quality of education that I received when I graduated from here in 1997. And that was my driving force as to why I jumped at this opportunity. Lastly, I remember that My father served on the board years ago, and I remember just feeling so proud of the fact that he was working for the community in that capacity. And selfishly, I would like my own children to look up to me in that same way. But I want to make sure that the district is continuing on the road that I think that it should be going on to make sure that Wissahickon is a premier district, as it was 30 years ago and as it should continue to be for the next 30. Thank you.
Thank you.
Amy, do you want them to wait back out here or can they sit back down at this point? We're gonna go to Noah Kelly and then we'll come back to Eugene.
Hi, I'm Noel Kelly. I live in the district. Do you want our street address or just? I live in the district. I have had 3 daughters that have gone through the Wissahickon school system. My one daughter's in that photograph. My oldest daughter used to sit in one of those chairs during the board. She was a board rep, one of the student board reps. I've submitted my resume. You know my educational background, my work background. I'm used to working in large, complex matrix organizations. I think I can help. And what I would like to help with is improve the communication between the administration and the board with the parents. I think there's a lot of misunderstanding of what the board's roles are. We're here to govern, or that you guys are here to govern, not manage. But I think it's really around the communication and making sure people are clear with what, what's going to happen here and what the processes are. I was here for the Radnor presentation. I thought they did a good job at using a standard change control process. They made sure that everybody was keen on what the problem is that they were trying to address. What I think we're doing as a district with the school change times, what I think we're doing is jumping around a little bit too much. So I think we do have to get even earlier today with Dr. Crisfield's presentation. I don't think there was a full understanding by the coaches about what we're trying to address here with the change in school times. I think I can help with some of that miscommunication. That's what I really had to say.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Gene Golson. I'm a resident of 600 Penland Bluebell Pike, and I've been there for 30 years. Why I'd like to become a member of the school board? Because it will allow me to contribute to the educational policies. As an educator with over 40 years of experience, I believe that I have the necessary skills to advocate for children and to promote community engagement. So I'd like to be able to be a part of the team that helps to have the students become better at being educated, especially with the students that are either in the special needs program, where I see there's a disparity with the percentage of students. I would like to help try to figure out how to fix that. And so as a result, I would like to become a part of this board to help and to become a help for the students of our district.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so hi, my name is Jill Lafferty. I'm sure many of you know who I am. My husband and I moved to Ambler in '95, then later to Bluebell. I have 4 kids, 3 of which have graduated from Wissahickon, one that is currently enrolled in the school. I have been a volunteer for nearly 19 years. During my time as a volunteer, I have been the president at Shady Groves Home and School for numerous terms. I've been the president at the middle school for numerous terms, and I'm currently on my 10th year as the home and school president for the high school. In addition to volunteering in that aspect, I have also been the chair of countless fundraisers, countless committees, and I've also volunteered at the Rising Stars Homework Club, and I also help my husband run our small business. Why do I want to be on the school board? I think it's obvious. I mean, I've dedicated nearly half of my life to Wissahickon. I care deeply about the students, the staff, the employees. I just want them to know that I want to do what I can to make their educational experience here at Wissahickon the best that it can possibly be. I remember a while back during one Wissahickon meeting, Jim had mentioned that the staff did an exercise where they wrote students' names on a Post-it note and they put them all around the room, and then the staff went around and initialed every student that they had contact with. So the students that they didn't have contact with, they knew these are the students that we have to work on. So I feel like that's where I am uniquely qualified for school board, because I've been in this for almost 20 years. I have made relationships, and that exercise, the whole point of that exercise was that relationships matter. And I feel the same way. I feel like relationships matter. I have made several relationships with teachers, staff, students, community members, and I feel like it would be a great fit for the school board. Thank you. I can't believe I got that in 2 minutes.
Good. Thank you, everybody. My name is John McDevitt. I live in Whitpain Township. I ran for school board a couple times. I've been in the area about 13 years. I care deeply about the community. I have a son in Bluebell Elementary School right now, and I've been in the finance business for most of my career, about 20 plus years, and I've worked with a lot of different boards in my role. I'm in council, and I report in compliance, and I do oversight on different funds, mutual funds. So I spend a lot of time working with different boards and oversight of different mutual funds and advisors. So I work very closely on what is effective oversight and ineffective oversight. So I have a lot of experience in that. I have a lot of experience in communicating with different people in the organization and finding common ground, using different resources, different of my skill sets. Also, I'm a chartered financial analyst, so I have a lot of experience in rolling up my sleeves and kind of digging down, using a lot of attention to detail to find creative solutions. For Wissahickon, I think what my priorities would really work on using my analytical background and find creative ways to improve the educational quality overall. I've been very impressed with the teachers my son has, but I definitely want to build on that and make sure it stays a top school in the state of Pennsylvania. I'd also use the finance background that I have to really work on the infrastructure, the different buildings of the school district, and see different ways I could use my background in budgets and resource management to find ways to help with that. And then safety, public safety in the schools, that would be another priority of mine. Thanks for your time.
Good morning. My name is David Morgan. I am a resident of Lower Gwinnett Township. I have been here for 3 years. To be honest, I had never heard of Lower Gwinnett or Bluebell because I was moving from Georgia, even though I'm originally from Pennsylvania. And we only heard about it because of the schools, which has been a fantastic experience. The people have been super nice. Our house has been a money pit because we couldn't do anything during the COVID. Anyway, I have when I was growing up, I had an experience with homelessness and other unfortunate events. And the one thing that kind of pulled me out of it was access to a good education. And it's been throughout my life that an education has served me well. I've graduated from Penn State, from Clemson University, and then also from Oxford University. Throughout my career, I kind of attributed my personal successes and learning and leadership to the fact that I've gotten a good educational base to help me make the decisions and continue onward. Throughout my work career, I've worked mainly in loan underwriting and credit risk, and I've taken a lot of first of all, I've reviewed a lot of different schools in looking at loans, so I have an understanding of how what a good school looks like from a financial perspective and otherwise. And I think I'm going to end before the buzzer ends. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity to the board and also to my fellow community members. My name is Kevin O'Rangers. I currently hold the title of Director of Educational Engagement and Innovation at Montgomery County Community College. I'm here tonight for the express purpose of what has been reflected in my entire career, which has been in the educational sector. Prior to my time at Montgomery County Community College, I spent 26 years in the museum world. My last stop as executive director of the Space Foundation Discovery Center in Colorado Springs, Colorado. So once again, all of my career has been really spent in the educational world for the express reason of ensuring that we are allowing our students an opportunity, an accessible opportunity to find a great education and, most importantly, find a pathway to a future career. If answering the question, why do I want to potentially be a school board member? I think the easy answer is, why not? These folks do an incredible amount of work in ensuring that they represent we, the community. And most importantly, do an incredible amount of work to represent members like Dr. Crisfield in his work each day with all of our teachers, our faculty, our administrators, and such within the school district. It is a big role. In terms of my current career at Montgomery County Community College, we are doing our very, very best to ensure that students do have an academic pathway forward, whether that's into a four-year degree program or whether it's to a living wage job as part of workforce development and training and certification. Again, I'm a very, very big believer in that. In being out in Colorado Springs, I had the ability to actually see how other school districts operate outside of the state of Pennsylvania. I'm proud to tell you that being a resident for the last 15 years here in Ambler and having a daughter in this school district for all of her life, this is an impressive and proud school district, and I would be honored to serve you. Thank you so much for your time.
Hello, everybody. I'm Claudine Paccio. I live in Bluebell in the Whitpain Township. A little bit about me, first and foremost, I am a wife and a mother. I have 3 kids in the district, one just graduated last year and 2 other high schoolers. I also have a sister who's been a teacher in New York State for 40 years. She was also a union rep, so I understand the part of teachers play in a school district as well as the unions. I've lived in many different states and countries throughout the last few years. I've been in here for about almost 10 years in Pennsylvania now. So I've seen a lot of different things. And before we moved here, I lived in Texas. So I will tell you, Texas start times are flip-flopped. Just to let you know, we can talk about that at a later time, but their high school doesn't start till 9:10. Anyway, I just wanted to share, why I want to be on the school board. I think I have very unique talents and background that I can share with everybody. I was a senior executive for many companies in the area where I've had over 300 people reporting into me, and where you have to collaborate in order to come up with a solution. You have to collaborate, communicate, know what your stakeholders want to do, et cetera, to move forward. I looked at the board goals. There were 6 board goals. I outlined them in my letter and where I thought I could help. Later school start times, obviously we've heard a lot tonight. I'm very familiar with this initiative. I've been involved for about 6 years in the district, all the different schools in the area, and seeing what they've done as they've started to flip over to later start times, as well as my daughter was the student that spearheaded the initiative to start in the beginning. The positive behavioral interventions and supports. So this was on the goal. I don't know a lot about that, but I am well versed in change management, as well as how do we get things moving and get things in place that we need to get in place. For the long-term enrollment projections and building capacities, again, in Round Rock. Okay, anyways, thank you.
Hi, my name is Thomas Riles. I have been in the Ambler Wissahickon School District my entire life. My why is very easy. I look at COVID and what it's done to the educational systems. It's thrown us off the tracks. I see a lot of districts right now, because I am in education. I have been for quite some time, fighting to get our kids back on track. Hearing pushing the school day back, it's not the only district that's involved here. So, me, I just believe in getting our school systems back on the track. My why is pretty big. Devices in schools, devices at home, sleep studies being completed and performed, wondering if devices are part of that sleep study prior to going to sleep. So everything I've been listening to just makes me think a little bit more about where I should be. And I have a lot of connections in this school district. I was born in Ambler, raised in Ambler, and still in education, and hopefully coming back to Wissahickon.
Hi, everybody. Dan Strauss. I live in Bluebell. My wife and I have 2 daughters who will grow up in the Wissahickon school system. Our oldest is currently a first grader at Stony Creek, and our younger daughter is currently at Beth Orr for pre-K. I'm very excited to attend Stony Creek with her big sister next fall. I spent 3 of my 4 years of college as an education major. It was only after a negative experience as a student teacher that I decided to change paths. As a 2004 graduate of Upper Dublin High School, and then on to Penn State, my entire educational experience was one of absolutely top-notch institutions. It was all I knew. I was blessed with teachers and professors who cared, and a warm and vibrant community that was a great place to grow up. It wasn't until that student teaching experience at age 22 that I was first exposed to an underperforming school. While that experience ultimately soured me towards teaching and I veered away from education as a profession, I always kept a piece of my life dedicated to helping youths. I've been a big brother to a now 22-year-old young man named Nasir since he was 11. He now has a high school diploma, has had a full-time job for 3 years, and never had any problems with drugs, alcohol, or crime. As we both grew older, I decided to get involved at the board level. I'm now the chairman of the Montgomery County Advisory Board for Big Brothers Big Sisters since January of 2021. I also serve on the alumni board of the Chabad at Penn State, and I recently finished a 2-year assignment on the advisory board for Life Science Cares Philadelphia. In my professional life as a partner at Klein Hirsch, the premier executive recruiting firm in life sciences, I feel I have a unique view on the areas where our local and national educational system has failed graduates of every level, from high school through medical and law school. In conclusion, I feel my qualifications, my passion for the direction of this school district make me the exact type of candidate you look for. And I'll close by saying this. While I was born and raised in Upper Dublin Cardinal, I'm now a proud Wissahickon Trojan parent, and I look forward to the opportunity to serve you guys.
Evening. I feel re-traumatized again, having Williams as the last name always gets you called last. So thank you so much for the opportunity of being here this evening. I submitted my candidacy for the seat because I want to contribute. We've been very fortunate having lived here in the district for the last, I think I lied in my letter. I think I said 10 years, it actually was 8. We moved here in 2015 to the country club, and now we live in Lower Gwinnett on Bushtown Road. I have 8 children, but 5 have enjoyed attendance here at the district. 4 are still here and being served very well. We're very happy with their placement here in the school district. Professionally, I run a nonprofit, have done so for the last 30 years, serving children and youth and adults with intellectual disabilities. I have a doctorate in education, a doctorate in social work, master's in human services, a master's in public administration, a master's in business administration. And I will not be going back to school ever again. So, this is as close as I will get, I think. So again, I just want to contribute and help out and try to bring those skills and assets to help the district. Thank you.
All right, so thank you everyone for those brief introductions, and thank you everyone for your submissions. We did have the opportunity again before today to look over the cover letters and resumes. So I appreciate those submissions and for your introduction today. So now, just one second. All right, we're just going to proceed at this point with choosing our 5 candidates. So everyone will, on your sheet in front of you, select your up to 5. One person. Yes. And then I'm going to, we'll give them to you. Okay, everybody's going to fill them out, and then we're going to collect them and give them to Katie. She's going to tally. So everybody can select up to 5. Okay. And Paul, you're going to text me yours, and I'll fill out your form.
Correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
That's my. And so, but you leave it on the 22nd, right? Yeah. So I'll try to drop it on. No, that's not. Yeah. I'll go.
It's usually breathing out. Yeah, right, all right.
Katie, are we still on the record? Are we still on the record? Okay. All right, so we're gonna reconvene. Thank you, Katie, for adding the numbers up for us. And I just want to thank everyone who did apply for the position. I want to let you know also, like, I think more than half of the members of the board that are sitting up here at one point in time did go through this exact same process. I know I went through it, Joe went through it, Marshall, Paul at home, Zeffie, Deanne. We've been through this process of applying and trying to get on the board by way of appointment. And then we later ran for the position. So just if you don't get the position here today, please consider running in the future. We had so many great applications, which is, you know, a really good problem to have. And we appreciate.
Amy, sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to mention that I ran for an appointment to an open board seat and lost, but then subsequently got voted into the board. So just keep that in mind as well, because a lot of great candidates, but we can only pick one.
And I had the same experience. I lost to Paul. He got appointed. I ran the next year and I won. So yeah, you know, we only select one person and we had a lot of great candidates. So I'm going to name off the 5 that are going to continue on to the next round in no particular order. Kevin Arrangers. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. Arrangers. Okay. Thank you. Daniel Strauss, Noel Kelly, Nathaniel Williams, and Eugene Golson. So those 5, if you could, Wade, do you want to take them somewhere outside?
Okay, we'll show you. Okay, okay.
You'll bring them back eventually, yeah. And everyone else, again, thank you so much for applying for the position. And we hope to see you running for the position in the future. All right. So do you want to bring?
You want to tell me which one to bring in?
Sure. Do you want to start with Kevin?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Good evening again.
Welcome back.
And thank you for the opportunity once again. Appreciate it.
Yes. All right. So a couple of us are going to ask you questions. You'll have 10 minutes to answer the questions. If there's time left over, we'll open it up for board members to ask additional questions.
Sounds good.
So the first question I have for you, what do you think are the biggest issues or challenges facing the district right now?
Facing the district, like every district, I think one of the biggest challenges is critical in terms of resources, resource development, how we use those resources, and most importantly, academic achievement. In my line of work at the community college, we have a significant problem. It's going to be faced by all of our students soon, particularly those graduating from Wissahickon High School, which is by 2025, there is an enrollment decline in the United States in colleges, whether they be community colleges or four-year universities across the country. So with those changing dynamics and with those changing demographics, with students going into college, school districts now more than ever have to think very, very critically about how we're using and applying our resources and ensuring academic success. And again, being at the college level, we are seeing students coming in that might be first-generation college students that may not have had a background or their parents had a background in coming to a college, whether it be a four-year university or a community college. So in terms of the school district, I think one of the biggest headwinds that we have is ensuring academic success, ensuring that we have the resources to support that success, and most importantly, giving our students an opportunity and dare I say, accessibility to ensure their future success. From my perspective, one of the things that I think school districts can and should do is to think critically about the kinds of programming, both the academic programming and the career readiness programming that would enable school districts to truly innovate, to shift gears, and to ensure success for their students graduating from high school onto, again, four-year colleges or even community colleges. In terms of things like the school day, we need to think critically about the health and wellness of our students. We're seeing more and more students, particularly in higher learning, coming in with mental health issues. They need those support systems in place. They're receiving good support in our school district. It's ensuring that when they move beyond the school district, that those supports do continue. But developing those support systems, ensuring the resources, ensuring the right staff and personnel for our mental health and mental health issues for our students remains in place and is successful so that those students transition on into college and on into life.
Thank you.
Kevin, I got the next question. The Pennsylvania School Boards Association advocates that school boards focus on governance while allowing the superintendent to focus on management. How would you explain the difference between governance and management?
It's a great question. Governance is true oversight. It's ensuring that the management of the school district are successful, and at the same time, it's acting as representation to the broader community. I'm a community member, you're a community member. That governance is just that. It's coming in with critical thinking, with effective and thoughtful listening, coming in with a spirit of collaboration. And most importantly, in that governance is providing oversight, providing support, and on some levels, providing leadership to our superintendent and our school district representatives. Governance is key. Governance needs to be transparent. Governance needs to be clear, and governance can be difficult. And that's where it does require someone that is a servant leader to come into that space and again, be an effective listener and be an excellent collaborator.
Thank you.
Marshall?
As a school board member, how would you balance the interests of students, employees, and taxpayers as you have to ensure that everyone's interests are looked at, reviewed, and compared and seen? So how would you balance those interests?
It's a great question. I appreciate that one. To answer this question as easily as possible, because I could go well into the rabbit hole in terms of the balance. Let's be honest, we're all here for one reason, and that is the needs and the interests of our students. So in terms of coming up with a balance between it, all of the decisions that we make as a board are directly reflective of our community, but most importantly, the intent is to ensure academic success of our students. So if you look at it through that lens, being able to balance it should always be balanced with the best intent of our students. Is the balance difficult? It is, particularly when there are fiscal issues or when there are community-based issues where the community may raise a particular perspective or a point of view that several members of the board or the board in general may not agree with. So coming up with that balance, again, is directly important when we know that the end result of all of that balance are our students and their best interests.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other board member questions? Well, I'd like to know a little bit more about the Pathways Initiative.
Sure.
I saw that in your resume, that it provides pre-K through 12 educational programming incorporating STEM. Can you explain a little bit more about that program?
I can, and I was just talking to one of our other community members here. At Montgomery County Community College, they've made a significant commitment to recognizing the changing patterns of our youth coming into things like community colleges. And one of the most important things that the college is taking on, and I'm overseeing and stewarding that, is shifting our focus not away from first year and second year college students, but thinking critically about the future pathway, the future pipeline of students coming to four-year universities or community colleges. And with that, the college has invested very recently over the last year in something called the Challenger Learning Center. For those of you, and I'm dating myself and most of the people in this room, you remember that cold night in January 1986. There was a Challenger disaster. Those families came together to develop a pathway for students, particularly in STEM, to allow students an opportunity in 5th through 8th grade to take on a real world job, to see themselves reflected in potentially a future STEM career. The Montgomery County Community College has just anchored a new Challenger Learning Center to the Pottstown campus, with our goal being to develop this pathway of lifelong learning, all ages and all phases. But we believe one of the most important areas in which to focus on are the needs of 5th through 8th grade students, giving them an opportunity to take on the role of communications officer, navigations officer, a robotics officer, a medical officer as part of a real world space mission. Additionally, we've begun to develop a series of STEM innovative and immersive activities. We call them discovery programs and things like robotics and drones and flight simulation and manufacturing technology. Again, allowing our students in 5th through 8th grade for possibly the first time in their life to come onto campus to do a really immersive and fun space mission, and at the same time have an opportunity to use the resources of the college in such a way that they can see a potential pathway to college, potential pathway to a future career.
Great. Did you have a question, Stephanie? Oh, it looked like you did. Okay. I would also, one of the other questions we typically ask is, so as I mentioned earlier in my introduction, like typically we expect members to attend 2 meetings a month, 2 committee meetings. And outside of those meetings, reviewing documents in preparation for the meetings. How would you manage this time commitment with these other responsibilities in your life?
It's a great question. And the answer is you have to. It is important to do it. In terms of my work every single day, I am handling documents, I'm overseeing budgets, I am dealing with the broader community, I'm dealing with our faculty and administration. This to me is important work. I would make that time, I have that time in the evenings to concentrate on supporting the board, supporting our superintendent, and representing the broader community. So going back to the question about balance, you do have to balance your work time from your extracurricular work time, but as an active and engaged member of this community, and potentially as an active, engaged member of the school board, I would make that time.
No, I'll ask something.
looks like you have a
You
question.
keep looking at
Every
me.
time I look at it, it looks like you have a question. I want to be the only one that.
I love this question. I ask it at every interview. Is there one thing you wish we did ask you that we didn't ask that you would like to share with us?
It's a really great question. And it's funny because I ask potential candidates that very same question, particularly in my work. Yes. And I think one of the things that I can't do in 4.5 minutes is talk about me. I can tell you about my background and my career, but it's really about me. I'll be honest with you and tell you that I would not be standing here in front of you if it wasn't for school boards where I went to school. I grew up in Camden, New Jersey, grew up later in Pensacola, New Jersey. School boards that are community members that dedicated their time to ensuring success of their students. I'm a product of that. My work is a product of that. Everything that I do in terms of my career is ensuring that level of success for every student that comes through. So I'm getting the Spanish archer getting yanked here. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Daniel Strauss? We're ready to begin. All right, so I have the first question. What do you think are the biggest issues or challenges facing the district right now?
In my perspective, I think it has to do with staffing. The level of staff that we're able to get, both at the teacher level, or not both, but teacher level, counselor level, custodian level, bus driver level. I think the way that you go about that is making sure that we are continuing to offer and remain competitive from a salary, benefits, and work-life perspective. And that the only way to attract and retain the top talent is the commitment to spend to get those types of people.
Thank you. Joe?
Daniel, I have the next question, and it's the Pennsylvania School Boards Association advocates that school boards focus on governance while allowing the superintendent to focus on management. How would you explain the difference between governance and management?
Well, I think if you look at it as 2 separate but overlapping concepts, right? Governance has to do with the overall direction, and I would say the direction that the board and the school district wants to take, whereas the management is more of the implementation, the execution of the guidelines that the board are discussing and putting into play.
Okay, thank you.
Marshall?
Daniel, you mentioned in your first answer that you thought staffing was one of the biggest issues. As a school board member, you have to look at not only staffing, you have to look at the interests of our community, you have to look at the interests of the taxpayers, you have to look at the interests of the students. How would you balance all of those interests, knowing that you have to look at everybody's selfish?
I think it's a self-fulfilling situation. The better the educators, the better the students, the better they become as alumni, and then as future residents and parents. And I think I'm a prime example. While I didn't come back to the exact district where I grew up in, I'm 3 miles away, right? And I know I've seen what good looks like, and I've definitely seen what bad looks like. And to me, the easiest, and I know it's an oversimplification, but a lot of it is guided by talent. Talent in the classroom, talent at the enterprise or, you know, superintendent, district level, and talent at the board level.
Thank you.
So as far as time commitments, board members are expected to attend 2 meetings a month, also be part of 2 to 3 committees, as well as review documents in preparation for the committee meetings and the regular meetings that we have. How will you manage the time commitment along with the other responsibilities in your life?
Sure. I don't foresee that as an issue for me whatsoever. I work in a very flexible environment. I'm in the office 2 days a week. I have 2 young children. My wife is, luckily for me, a terrific stay-at-home mother and handles a lot of the transportation, which is quite a task, I might say. From a board perspective on Big Brothers Big Sisters, my commitment to them is 1 hour a week, which is the 3rd Thursday at 7:45 a.m. I don't envision that interacting with our time here. And then everything else is done either ad hoc or during weekend hours. So I don't envision it being a problem.
And as far as your experiences on your other boards, I see you mentioned earlier also you're the board chair of the Montgomery County Regional Advisory Board for Big Brothers Big Sisters. You're also on the alumni board for Chabad of Penn State, as well as on the advisory board for Life Science Cares of Philadelphia. What has been your experience on these other boards? How have you contributed to those boards?
It's funny. I always joke with my parents when I was a kid that my goal in life was to be rich enough that all I did was sit on boards. And I very quickly, after joining my first board, realized that probably wasn't the greatest goal in life. So I've seen what underperforming boards look like, and I was actually part of one at Big Brothers Big Sisters. When I joined the Montgomery County board was 6 people. It was lingering. There were people that didn't show up. Myself as well as another gentleman that I would say is a contemporary of mine age-wise, really dug in and found ourselves recruiting what we felt to be a more representative group on our board, younger, more diverse, more female. And what that did was that increased engagement, and it allowed us to broaden our footprint beyond just philanthropic fundraising. We're actually doing things to impact our community, and we're doing things that we can empirically say have shown results and successes.
Great. Other board member questions?
I have a question. This is a little bit different, but how would you describe yourself as a father and a friend?
I am the funniest guy in the room as both a father and a friend. I think I am somebody that is cool and collected under high pressure situations. My 7-year-old has broken 4 bones so far. My wife has fainted twice. I have fainted 0. And I think as a father, my daughters would tell you that I'm there. And I learned that from my father, who unfortunately recently passed away. But the biggest thing for me as a child was my dad was there all the time, every game, every practice, every concert, whatever it was. And I made that commitment to my kids when they were born that I was going to do the same thing. So I am that present parent. Sometimes I'm the loudest person in the room. Sometimes you'll never hear me, but I'm there.
Any other questions, Steve?
I thought Marshall was the funniest candidate.
But I'm not running.
Other questions? Well, we have a number of committees that our board members sit on. Finance committee, policy committee. one of the more exciting ones, racial equity oversight, facilities and transportation, communications, facilities. Of these committees, what committees strike your interest and why?
Racial and equity oversight certainly is something near and dear to my heart, especially being involved in the Big Brothers Big Sisters program. I've seen what represented communities have had to go through, especially in school districts that don't have as large a percentage as others might. I also think I'd fit well in the governance committee. While I'm not a lawyer, I come from a family of lawyers. I see things in a very pragmatic, black and white way. I think that there are generally very logical ways to get out of certain situations as long as everybody leans in together. Transportation, maybe. I'm a terrific parallel parker, but aside from that, I would say diversity and equity and probably governance.
And I'll ask the last question also. Communication are something we're looking to improve with the community. What sort of suggestions do you have for how we could better improve communications with the community?
Can I ask you a question back?
It depends what's the question.
Well, so where do you see yourselves falling short?
Oh, so having the opportunity to engage more with the community and getting the word out about events, just being able to communicate more about things that are going on within the district.
Okay. I think one of the things that I've been really proud of is the use of multiple languages in school district communications. I think that needs to start expanding to uses of different platforms, right? As our community gets younger, our parents are getting younger, we need to reach them where they are. I'm not saying TikTok, right? But let's start thinking about utilizing Facebook, Instagram, whatever it may be. There are places where our communities are, Reddit, whatever. And I know that's, a slippery slope, but there are places where our community are, where they're talking, where we're not getting to them. And they're living in this bubble and they're hyping themselves up, right? And I saw some of them outside that angrily walked out after the results were done. So I think we're not reaching them. And it's not on them to meet us. It's on us to meet them where they are. And that's done through more effective communication and through different means of communication. It could be multimedia, it could be short snippets, but I think it needs to be in a much more digestible fashion to get people to really buy in and listen to what we're saying.
All right, great. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate the opportunity.
All right, we'll move on to our next candidate. Eugene Golson. Eugene Golson. Hi, Jean. How are
Hi,
you?
how's everyone?
Good. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
All right. So I am going to start off with questions.
Okay.
What do you think are the biggest issues or challenges facing the district right now?
From my perspective, as an inner city youth back in the 60s and going to a school that was abutted right to projects. So the education there was less than par. So when I look at the district and I see the students that are in special needs, that are Black and brown students, the proportion that's a flag for me. The suspension rates is something else that I looked at that I find concerning. So those are two areas that I think can have more focus, if you will, in terms of trying to create and figure out attainable goals for those numbers to change and to be less different and extreme as they are. So that's something that kind of jumped out at me when I was studying the data.
Thank you. Joe?
So Jean, the question here is, the Pennsylvania School Boards Association advocates that school boards focus on governance while allowing the superintendent to focus on management. How would you explain the difference between governance and management?
So I think governance would be policy setting policy for the district. And then the other management would be more like day-to-day operations, school ops, whether it's, school safety, the professional development schedule for teachers, those kinds of things.
Thank you.
Marshall?
Thank you, and welcome. You talk about the interests of our students and making sure that everybody gets an equal opportunity, everybody gets a chance.
Yes.
But in addition to our students, we have the staff, we have a community with taxpayers, and we have to balance everybody's interests and needs. How would you go ahead and do that?
Well, as a board member, I would, first of all, as I wrote, I would make sure that I take into consideration all of the stakeholders' ideas, comments, observations, opinions, and have an opportunity to also collaborate with my fellow board members as well to explore all of the issues that the district might encounter. And to kind of put a close on that, I would be eager as a board member to collaborate with everyone, all the stakeholders, the parents, the teachers, community stakeholders, to address all the issues that the district faces, and that would be my charge.
Thank you.
So sitting on the board requires that you attend 2 meetings a month, sit on about 2 or 3 committees, and spend time reviewing documents throughout the month. So how will you manage this time commitment along with your other responsibilities in your life?
So I am confident that I would have the time necessary as a retired person. I set my schedule each day. Of course, I collaborate with my daughter in terms of helping her with her endeavors, and but I would have time to commit to all of that. And I would love to do that.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, based on your resume,
Yes.
it looks like your background is in education,
Yes.
which is nice. How do you think that will help shape how you would sit on the board?
It's a good question. I think as an educator and as a person who enjoys children in terms of their progress, their enthusiasm for education, etc., I'd be able to manage that, I think, pretty well.
And I know you previously sat on the board of Germantown Academy, correct?
Yes, that's the Board of Trustees, yes.
Board of Trustees. And
Yes.
how long did you sit on their board?
I'm gonna say that was, Jeffrey probably has a better memory than I do. But I'd say that's probably about, I'd say it's about 5 years.
And in that role, was it pretty similar to the type of role that I described that you would be doing here?
It was similar.
And what was your experience like sitting on that board?
It was intense. Each of our meetings and subsequent committee meetings were very much structured on getting the best for what GA could offer to the students in the community.
So following up on Zephy's question, as an educator, you have several years' experience being a principal, I saw a music teacher. You have a lot of years in administration and teaching. What do you feel like that brought to the table when you sat on the board at Germantown?
Just my perspective as an individual moving through the educational system, GA's educational system versus the school district educational system. So I saw, where there were deficiencies in the school district of Philadelphia in terms of the schools I was in, and I worked to rectify those disparities.
And is that something you feel you could bring to Wissahickon, sitting on our board, being able to look at what we have in place and be able to offer ideas?
Yeah, I think, for me, being from Philadelphia, being gone through Philadelphia schools and then subsequently gone to private school, I have a perspective of both schools and both systems. And I think that because of that experience, that I would be able to bring my skill set to the board for Wissahickon.
And one of the other things that we're working on here as a board is the achievement gap. And it's something that you've probably heard many times over your years in education.
Yes.
Is this something you personally worked on or something you have ideas on how to address?
It was part of our school procedures when we met in August and went through our professional development. We looked at the data that was being presented to us from the PSSAs, et cetera. And then we set up our PD schedule to meet those disparities that were in our students as we went through the school year. So for the Wissahickon School District, I would probably look at what we could do, whether it's creating more goals to meet the needs of the students.
Thank you. Anyone else have additional questions? Ian?
Can I just ask, I asked this to the other candidate, how would you describe yourself? Are you a father? I don't even know.
I am a father, yes.
Oh, his daughter's here. How would you describe yourself as a father and a friend?
I have two children. They're adults now, but I still am in contact with them daily. We discuss all kinds of, issues that they may be having. And then as a parent, they have been the greatest joy of my life.
Thank you very much. No other questions, right? All right, thank you again.
Thank you.
Noel Kelly?
Sure.
Sorry. Do you want to head home? Do you want to head home? She can't. You're her ride. Okay. Never mind. I thought I'd give you the option. Okay.
She obviously wants to hear what I have to say.
All right. We will begin. All right. I'm going to ask you the first question, Noel.
Sure.
What do you think are the biggest issues or challenges facing the district right now?
The biggest ones? I would say it's communication. It's like the basics of communication, honestly. There's a lot of initiatives in terms of the goals and strategic vision, but if we don't get the communication with the parents right, there's always going to be this frustration, and there's always going to be this anchor of being able to get these things done as quickly as we can. So I would focus first on the communication, and then I would focus on the processes. I do think we have to have some sessions, like I'll say lunch and learns or whatever you want to call them, go to the school board meetings and the local schools to help the parents understand how these processes work. what the school board can and can't do, what they're here for, what the administration is here for, or how to actually get their issues onto the agendas or how to get their issues resolved. I think those kinds of things with the parents would go a long way in reducing the frustration and gaining support for some of the things we want to do.
Great, thank you. Joe?
Noel, the Pennsylvania School Boards Association advocates that school boards focus on governance while allowing the superintendent to focus on management. How would you explain the difference between governance and management?
I have served on, I've worked at a lot of large companies and I've been on a lot of governance boards. I've run a lot of large portfolio budgets in those boards. Governance is more around setting the vision and decision making, like they rule on what the administration would be bringing forward in terms of ideas and things. I do think there's a symbiotic relationship. I think there has to be give and take, but I think it's the administration's job to execute, meaning to actually go out, manage within budget to whatever the goals and objectives are set in the strategic plan. They're the ones who should be affecting and executing that. I don't think it's the school board's job or responsibilities to kind of jump in and manage certain things at certain levels within each school. But I do think we have to have a presence so that people understand how we work together.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Marshall?
Thank you, and thank you for coming. You mentioned earlier that communication is key. We have to make sure that our families, our parents know exactly what's going on and what everybody's role is.
Yeah.
In that regard, we as board members have to balance all of those interests, whether it's the faculty and staff, whether it's our students, whether it's our parents and our taxpayers who fund our school district. We have to make sure everybody is accounted for and everybody is considered.
Yeah.
How would you balance those interests of each of those groups as a board member?
I think you'd have to kind of identify what the problem is first. Like, what is the specific problem you're trying to address, or what's the goal you're trying to achieve? Using the change in school time as an example. I think there are a lot of constituents, and I do think Dr. Chris Phelps kind of walked through some of those tonight. He did, I think, 2 or 3 of them tonight. Like, what's the impact with the North Monco? What's the impact on after school and before school care? So I think that you have to identify all the constituents and then kind of have a strategy for each one of those to solicit the feedback and get their input. But I do think it's the administration's job to pull that all together and present that to the board to say, here's what I've learned, or here's what I found. And that's what he was doing tonight. I think we could do it a little bit differently. I think we have to kind of use the classic change control processes that are available, making sure that everybody understands what the problem is that we're trying to address. Even tonight, I think there's a little bit of a hiccup with what we were trying to do. I don't think everybody's aligned on, are we lifting and shifting the school day? Or doing what Radnor did, where we're trying to advocate starting later, but protect, the end time as much as we can. And that's what Radnor kind of did. And I think there's something to that. So I still think there's a little bit of confusion as to how even amongst the board and the administration on how that had gone so far. So I would like to improve that as well, meaning if we agree to a process and follow this stepwise process, a change process through, we shouldn't be going backwards to kind of redefine the problem or what have you. Does that answer your question?
All right, so board members are generally expected to attend 2 public meetings a month. In addition, there are 1 or 2 committee meetings in a given month. Outside of those meetings, you will need to spend time reviewing documents beforehand. How will you manage this time commitment along with your other life responsibilities?
I'm a workaholic. I love to work. I love to read. I would just throw myself into this as much as everything else. I don't do as good a job managing my sleep as I would like to. I do manage it, but I do have a ring that tells me when to go to sleep. I will do it. I'm an avid reader. I read everything I can get my hands on, related to not only education, but anything. And right now I'm into the Stoics, which is kind of interesting. I recommend it. But I will do it. Don't worry. I have nothing but time on my hands right now.
Anyone else with questions? If not, I'll continue on, Dan.
How do you see your role in increasing diversity, equity, and inclusion in our district?
That's a good question. I think we have to get out there and meet more people and make sure we understand what their needs are. full stop. I mean, if that means more community meetings or going to all the local school board meetings or home association meetings, then we'll do it. I think we have to do that. There is one idea that I had about expanding the gifted program in the high school, and maybe even gearing one towards diversity, students of diversity, backgrounds. So we can kind of build a bridge to, not only what they need or what they have, but getting them into college or whatever path forward they want. But I do think we have to focus on that. As if you're intentionally focused on that, you will improve that. At one company, we set out to have, we wanted to have specific interns of color. So we actually reached out to a bunch of the HBCUs in the area, and we actually got some really great interns, and that relationship still goes on even after I left. So I'm quite proud of setting that up. But you just have to, with intent, you have to kind of commit to doing it and then just do it.
So looking at your cover letter, I was very impressed, you've overcome cancer and the work that you've done since then through Live Strong Foundation and I Hate Cancer, Delete Blood Cancers, these different organizations, I think is, really admirable. I guess my question is, so it looks like you're really into the health and wellness after coming through this. And health wellness is something very important to me and is something that is part of our goals here as the board, is to improve health and wellness of our students. Deanne asked Dr. Mitchell earlier, besides sleep, what can we do to really just improve the well-being of our students? And what are some suggestions you have, how you think we could improve the health and wellness of our students?
Well, I do think there's something to what Dr. Mitchell had said. I do think that there's some basics, not only sleep, but the nutrition, and I'll just say exercise. But you have to kind of incorporate that into your day. So if we could get, safe pathways to and from schools where kids could bike or run or walk, or even 1 or 2 days a year where parents and/or teachers lead a bike to school day. There are these programs. We just have to kind of set them up and do it to promote more kids moving outside of, games and sitting there playing games. But I think you have to incorporate it into your actual day, every day. I try to walk every day. I try to build that into my work day. I don't get to the gym as often as I could, but I do work out 3 times a week. I didn't have any cookies tonight. You guys should be ashamed for having cookies. There should be a fruit tray out there. Fruit tray out there. No. But no, it's you have to teach the kids how to do it, but you also have to do it yourself so they see that behavior being emulated.
And then I also noted you want to bring WIS Nation community closer.
I do think if we improve the communication and reduce the frustration levels, I do think we can kind of come together and move as one.
So do you have some specific ideas on things you would want to do to bring the community closer?
I do. I think if we got out there and taught the parents what the process, one of the biggest frustrations I've noticed is that, they fill in the blue slips and they come up with questions and answers. They don't get answers because it's not the format, right? That's not what this meeting's for, but they don't know how to get the answer to their question. Another one is the miscommunication around discontinuing the gifted program in high school. I would love to see a definitive source of the truth. So when the rumor starts churning online, we can refer people to actually the definitive source of the truth. We're not doing away with the gifted program in the high school. There are changes, but it's not going away. It's those kinds of things that we just have to kind of think through what's happening and what we want, and then how to build the bridge to the right answer.
Thank you. All right. Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you.
All right. And Mr. Williams. Good evening. How are you?
Good, thanks.
All right. I'm going to start us off. What do you think are the biggest issues or challenges facing the district right now?
I would think that from what I could see, two, I think the student engagement and keeping them excited about the prospect of education is a challenge. And I think staffing, just because that's an issue that every organization is dealing with. The person power issues are things everyone has to contend with.
Thank you, Joe.
The Pennsylvania School Boards Association advocates that school boards focus on governance while allowing the superintendent to focus on management. How would you explain the difference between governance and management?
So I think governance focuses policy and really setting the direction and the vision. And it's the superintendent's job to carry that out and to seek clarification where necessary by the superintendent. But again, the day-to-day operations and what that policy looks like on the ground, that's the superintendent and the board's job is to set that.
Thank you.
Marshall?
Thank you, and thank you for your time tonight.
Sure.
One of the overriding interests we've been talking about is the health, well-being of all of our students. We've also talked about the needs and interests of others as well, including our staff, our community members, our taxpayers, everybody who has a stake in our district. As a school board member, you have to look at all of those and protect everybody's interests, see everybody's interests, and decide how we're going to proceed based on everybody's interests. How would you balance the interests of each of those separate and distinct groups?
Sure. I think that often we miss an opportunity to find the commonality in what different stakeholders are saying. And I think that's where you begin, is like, where is it that we agree? And there generally is some kernel that we can agree upon. So I think establishing that, and then understand it's about dialogue. That there's going to have to be a courageous conversation, and I believe a courageous conversation is two-sided. It's not just to talk, but it is also to listen, to understand that there are different moving parts and different perspectives. But I believe dialogue is really, really important, and respectful dialogue.
Thank you.
So board members are generally expected to attend 2 meetings a month and 1 to 2 committee meetings, as well as review documents in preparation for these meetings. How will you manage this time commitment along with your other life responsibilities?
Well, I think it's an issue of priorities, and having children that are older and not as needy and driving cars and getting around on by themselves makes it a little easier. I have a wonderful, very supportive wife, so it makes it possible. And also in my career, I've been doing my job for a long period of time, and so we're in the process of looking for succession planning. So there are other players that are rising to the responsibility level of taking over a lot of the day-to-day operations. So I do not project it to be a challenge.
Stephanie?
Hi, a couple of questions. It looks like you might have spent some time in California. Not sure of
No.
the timing of that.
Sure. It is a hybrid program.
Okay.
So it's a 2-year program. You go for a couple of residencies, but you're primarily doing it as a hybrid.
Okay, so it was just a teleschooling situation. Gotcha. All right, so then off to my other question. So I don't recall if you said 8 or 10 children have gone through the Wissahickon.
We've had 8 children. 3 are adult children now. 5 have gone through Wissahickon, and 4 are currently there now.
Awesome. Can you maybe talk to us about, what you've seen in that duration of time? Because that's probably a few, maybe more than a decade in there, what you've seen in that time, what makes you excited, and also what elements you think you want to put a, focus on.
Sure.
If you were to be on the school board.
I must say, for the 5 children that has experienced Wissahickon, it has been nothing but a positive experience. So I don't have any negative stories to share, experiences. We have one child that's on the spectrum, so we are utilizing special education services for him. That has gone extremely well as well. So I don't really have a complaint list, but I've had the opportunity to hear from others that have not enjoyed the same kind of experience. And so, I would want to make sure that voice, that experience, where we have run into challenges, that we face them and we address them. So again, my experience and my wife and our children has been positive. So I don't have any complaints there or any preconceived ideas of what needs to be done. I think as a new board member, I'd want to listen and to learn, and to make sure I'm out and about so I can hear the different perspectives, especially the ones that are different than mine.
I did like under your skills, you listed listening, and I think that is a really big part of being on the board is listening to the community. So aside from listening though, how would you improve communications with the community? What would you do different, or how would you approach communicating with your fellow community members, members of the school district? What would you do?
I think it's important for us to meet them where they are. And I think I've heard from different individuals that you're going out and whether it's visiting schools or being part of events in the community. I think that's the key. I think often groups expect for them to join us, and that's often not practical for them. So I know that a lot of times there are things that are happening on the weekends and late nights. So I think it's important for us to get out and to, especially for a new board member, to get out and to meet as many people that are part of the community. And again, to listen to their perspective and learn what they're experiencing.
And I noted are you currently on all 4 of these boards, or?
Correct.
And are those quite a time commitment for you, or?
They are, and I'm, very fortunate that they lean in when they're scheduling. So if I share with them, that these are issues, and most of the boards are pretty small, 5 to 7 people. So we work around each other's schedules, and the advent of Zoom has been a great help as well. I have some flexibility there, and I need to be honest that if I get on the school board, that would take the priority, and some of those other things may have to be re-examined.
And what has been your experience being on those boards and collaborating with others? Can you share a little bit about that?
It has really been, I think a wonderful opportunity, especially for a person in my position as a CEO. I think you often, don't have the opportunity for collaboration. You often are asked to make decisions and provide leadership, but there we come in as equals, and we're working to solve problems together. So some of those organizations are providing social services. HealthSpark is looking at health parity issues. So I think that diversity of exposure to the different kinds of issues that communities are dealing with has been a great help.
Nathaniel, can you tell us what the 4 M's we all need to be successful in life?
I owe you $20 after this, Joe. I wrote a book not too long ago, a couple of years ago. And when I examined what is universally wrong with most situations, I found that there were 4 M's. There were an issue of mapping and figuring out where we want to go, an issue of mental wellness and its contributing factor to sometimes causing challenges, to seeking out mediation and looking at alternatives, and last but not least, mentorship. That often we don't lean on others and learn from their experience. So those are the 4 M's that I think lots of times initiatives will focus on one of them. I'm suggesting that we concentrate on all 4 simultaneously.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Oh, yes, Steve, go ahead.
Sorry, just one more. First off, thanks for telling us that your experience in the district has been good. That's great to hear. But if you did become a board member and some of the parents that you were speaking to had other issues, and they know you're a board member and they come to you with those issues, how are you going to address those?
Sure. Again, I think first is to listen. And I'm sure there is a channel. I think I saw it on the website of how issues should be directed. And places where people should go, and I would encourage them to utilize that. I would also use the opportunity I have in talking with district leadership to say, hey, I heard this circumstance, and can you listen out for it? So again, I want to make sure that they follow the protocol, but I would also make sure that I use my information to share with others who may not have heard it, and hopefully give them a heads up that it's on its way.
Great, thank you so much.
Sure.
All right, so this concludes our interviews. I think we will take a brief recess to allow board members to finish filling out their forms and to turn them in. So let's break for 10 minutes. Is that fine? I know it's late.
Just let me know, there's 1 candidate here and 4 candidates outside, so just let us know where the candidates should be. Thank you.
Oh, yes, they can come in at this point, yeah.
Amy,
Oh,
it's Paul.
hey, Paul.
Quick question. Can you remind us, are we voting for one or are we voting for more than one?
So Paul, actually, since you're at home, you don't have. You have this. Okay.
Melissa getting out that.
You don't have to use this. Okay. For scoring though.
Amy, what I would suggest is that we proceed with public comment. And then after that, we can then deliberate with the full board on all the candidates.
Before we do this.
And then I think then based on public discussion, we have to take a read on whether or not the board is ready to take a vote.
Got it. Let's do that. All right, so we won't take the break, actually. We'll do that. So we'll do public comment. And then after public comment, we'll deliberate. And then we'll do the voting process. Okay. All right, so what we're going to do actually, because of the hour, we'll allow 2 speakers per candidate. So a max potentially of 10 speakers for 3 minutes each. Okay. All right, so let's see. All right, we have Stuart George.
Thank you. I'm here to speak on behalf of Gene Golson. My name is Stuart George. My wife Shannon and I are residents of Wissahickon. We live in Blue Bell Country Club for the last 23 years. We have 2 sons, and our oldest son graduated from Wissahickon High School in 2016. We've been friends with Gene and Marie for 22 of our 23 years here in Blue Bell. So I've had the opportunity and the pleasure to see the type of quality individual Gene actually is. I won't give a long backstory, but I will tell you why I think Gene will be a great addition to the board. I'll start with Gene's concrete experience that proves he has the qualifications and dedication to be a value add to the board. As a child, Gene grew up in Philadelphia, and he commuted daily along with his twin brother Byron by bus and train to Wissahickon to attend Germantown Academy. So early in his life, Gene learned the importance of striving for a quality education. Fast forward to his college experience, Gene received his bachelor's degree in music from Westchester University and his master's in education from Antioch University, which helped him propel him to a 40-year career in the field of education. Gene spent 35 of those 40 years working for the school district of Philadelphia in multiple different capacities. 11 of those years was as a music teacher, 7 of those years was as a school counselor, and 17 of those years was as an assistant principal. So it's clear you can see that Gene has the background and experience to bring a unique perspective to the board. Turning away from Gene's resume to the person that Gene is, I'll tell you that Gene is not only one of the wisest people I know from a book smart perspective, he's also one of the wisest people I know in the way that he actually lives his life in general. Gene is kind, he's patient, he's thoughtful, he's helpful, he's encouraging, he's courageous, he's humorous, and I'll be candid with you, he's not really that good of a barbecue cook, but he does throw a really good Eagles party. So that just really speaks to his competence or to his hospitality. But seriously, wherever Gene goes, he's sort of, he builds community with his thoughtful, we're in this together sort of an attitude. He even works out at a local fitness gym each morning at 5 a.m. And the whole gym knows Gene as the mayor. That's due to his enthusiasm, his competence, and his willingness to lend a hand. I won't take up much more of your time, but I'll say that electing Gene to the school board, I think you're giving the kids of Wissahickon a supportive and competent advocate. Thank you.
Thank you. Katie, you want online?
Yes, we have Nathan Leung.
Okay. Nathan, you can go ahead and unmute.
Yeah, I was just wondering, is this the time for public comments in general or only for public comments on the current board?
We're just doing on the candidates right now.
Okay, sounds good. I'll call back in I guess an hour or whenever.
Anyone else?
Or maybe next month. We'll see. It's
okay. Thank you.
We have Adam Zucker.
Adam, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to speak on behalf of Gene Golson. I've known Gene since I was a young man. He's older than me, so I can say that. And I don't want to talk about his background or any of that, because I think that probably all the candidates who are here who have spoken today you know, are qualified in some way. But what I think that Jean has the real ability to do is to communicate and listen to those that disagree with him. And I think that's really important as a public official, because there's a lot of people who are going to disagree with your decisions as a school board. You may not be aware of that. Actually, I know you are.
They are.
Yeah. Marshall can attest to that. But it's okay to disagree. But if you feel listened to, you're going to feel validated, and you're going to accept the decision that that a board such as the school board is going to make. So while I guarantee there will be a lot of people, maybe even including myself, who won't agree with something that Jean or the board may decide, I can just tell you that Jean is the kind of person. I've known Jean since probably 1994. And he's always the kind of person who will just engage in a thoughtful conversation with you, listen to you, acknowledge what you have to say. And I think that Jean also learns from the people he speaks to, even those that may disagree with him. So I think that's a really valuable thing for a school board member, because when you have somebody who's in a position where others are going to tend to disagree with you, it's important that they feel heard and that they feel listened to, so that they can accept and understand the decisions that are finally made. Because when you don't feel listened to, then it's very difficult to accept the decisions that others may make. And Jean will always make people feel that they've been listened to, that they've understood. And he's also the kind of person who may alter his opinion a little bit because he's spoken to somebody who disagrees with him. So I see that I only got about 35 seconds left. So with that, I would just say that, you know, and this is, you know, not a comment on the qualifications of any of the members who are any people who have spoken this evening, because I'm sure that they all have the best intentions, and I'm sure that they're all, you know, intelligent and experienced people. I'm just speaking in favor of Jean because I think he would make a great school board member. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So I did limit it to 2 because we are kind of late. I took Marie and Jessica. I assume you would both say positive things. So unfortunately, all right. Next I have Sharon O'Donnell. She left. Okay. This is school board. Michelle left also, right? No. Michelle Chess? Yeah, sorry. I'm sorry, I'm talking to Michelle saying Michelle. And yours is for start. Oh, you also have school board in it, Michelle Meller. Okay. Did you want to still speak? Okay.
Hi, Michelle Meller with Payne Township. I actually thought the public comment for school board was going to be before, when the 12 members. So I was actually going to, and I'm still going to because she deserves it. I was going to get up and talk about Jill Lafferty and what an amazing asset she is to the school. Many of you have even come to her and she's helped you with things. The 5 candidates that you just picked, none of them, they all were, oh, we will have to learn the school and what's going on within the school. That woman knows every school, every child. You did her the biggest disservice. I'm sorry, this is not a democratic process. First of all, at the polls, the voters were deceived into voting for somebody who is no longer on this earth. The Democratic Party told everybody to vote for the 5. There were not 5, there were 4. One was gone. She had thousands of votes. And now her thousands of votes, which would have given her the win had the deception not been at the polls. So her thousands of votes that she received on election day are now being squashed by 9 votes. That's not a democratic process. I'm sorry, but that's a dictatorship. And this is a disservice to the community and the school district. And that's all I have to say.
Katie, is there anyone else registered online?
There's no more hands raised on Zoom?
No more?
No more.
Okay. And nobody else has anything for, no, 10 minutes, okay. All right, then we will move on to board discussion at this point. Before we vote.
Unless you want to recess.
Do we want to recess first or just? 5-minute recess? Okay, we'll take a 5-minute recess. And then we'll come back at quarter after. Is that what's going on your? All right, we're gonna get started again. If everybody could get back to their seats. All right. Is everybody ready to get started? All right. All right, so now the board is going to have some discussion about the candidates. And then from there, we're going to go ahead and rank the candidates 1 through 5. 1 being the person you most want, 5 being the least. And then Katie is going to determine who has the most 1 positions. And that person will be brought back up for, not back up to the podium, but brought back up to us for discussion. So we're gonna have some discussion right now before we do our voting. If anyone has any thoughts that like everybody on the board to consider before they do their ranking. Anyone want to start us off? I know it's late. Everybody's tired. You probably didn't sleep much last night.
Thank you, guys. Just so one thing to consider is that in order for us to appoint someone to the vacant board seat, we have to, as a board, have at least 5 yes votes for one of these candidates, right? And so I think that's really the end game here that we're working towards. How we get there, there's discretion. Whether we discuss openly, whether we do ranked choice voting, whether we call a vote now. Again, we have discretion on how we do it, right? But at the end of the day, we want to get in a position where we can call a vote on one candidate, and the first candidate can secure at least 5 votes, yes, from the board, gets the spot.
Yeah, I just want to say a sincere thank you to the 5 candidates that are remaining. I think you guys are all wonderful, and it's obviously a very hard choice. And I also want to say a sincere apology for being here at 10:30 at night. Oh boy, but this is what the Sunshine Act requires of us. So what are we going to do, guys? Let's vote.
So a couple thoughts I have. Again, I want to thank everybody as well for coming out. So for me, I thought everybody was wonderful. As I said, we had 12 great candidates to start, or 11 then tonight. So it was a really tough decision, but so a couple things. First, I really liked Eugene, that he had a background in education. You know, we had Ronnie on the board for many years, and she had a background in education. Before that, we had Ron on the board, had a background in education. And currently, we don't have anybody with a background in education on our board. And I think that that is a perspective that we do need to have, is someone that we do have, obviously, a background in education right here. A board member with a background in education, I think is something important, and we have had that in the past. So I did like that. And Eugene also had the experience of sitting on other boards in the past, including neighboring Germantown. So I think that you know, he has that experience as well that he could bring to us. I also like Noel came to us with some ideas about communication and how we can improve that in our community. And that's something I know we've been talking about for a really long time, is how we can improve communication and engagement with our community. And, you know, he brings up the idea of lunch and learn, like having new ideas of ways we can communicate better with our community and engage with them, I think is really important. So I really liked that as well. And then I also liked Kevin, that he's involved with Monco. I mean, we have students here that go part-time to Monco. We have that program. I like that students have that opportunity to go there. And I like that Kevin is with Monco. And he talked about the Pathways program. So I liked that experience that he brings to the table as well, and has that background in education too. So for me, I think that I liked those 3 candidates. I also liked Nathaniel and his experience on other boards. So I think we have, a lot of great candidates. So I really would like to hear some other thoughts from other board members before I vote. I think it's gonna be tough for me.
Amy, I'll chime in. So I just want to clarify is that you bring up a great point that with Ronnie Heyman leaving the board, we no longer have an ex-teacher on the board. I will count myself as being in education. I've been in public education for 20 years now, but never in the classroom, always on the administration side. So I think having someone on the board who's actually been in a classroom in front of kids brings a valuable perspective to this body. So for that reason, Jean's candidacy is appealing to me for sure. I would say that, also I appreciated Noel's comments about and his perspective on some of the improvements we can make in overall communication with our school community. And I think he could be an asset as we look to continue to improve in that area. But what I want to say generally is not just for the 5 candidates who kind of made it to this stage, is that I also want to thank all the candidates. There were originally 13 that initially applied, and I think who came tonight, there were 11 that came tonight. As I think we all know firsthand, being a school board member is a volunteer unpaid job, obviously. It can often feel like a thankless job, but it's a very important job that I know we are all passionate and committed to and wanting to make a difference for our kids and also for the school community. And I appreciate all the folks who took the step to apply, to come out here tonight to speak to us and let us get to know them a little bit more. And we had so many great candidates, but in the end, we can only pick one. So I apologize to those that didn't make it to the first round, and apologize to the others that aren't going to be eventually picked by us. But know that we're grateful that we had so many good candidates to choose from tonight. And we do appreciate all your efforts and your interest and your passion for doing the right thing for our school district and our community. Thanks.
Yeah, Rosetta. So again, I would like to say thank you to all 5. I think that you were exceptional in your presentations tonight. I also think that Noel had a great thing to say about communication. I think that's where we fall short as a board with communicating to the community. So I think that would be a really important thing to have. I also, like Jean, I believe that, again, education and a background in education is really important to have on the board. And, I agree with both Joe and Amy, that we don't have anyone now on the board after the retirement. And so I think that that's a valuable asset to have. And the other, my other person, like, this is so hard. Like, we're given these people that are so amazing and we can only pick one. And I apologize too, that we have to pick one person, but I also liked Kevin Orange's presentation tonight as well. I feel that, he talked about health and wellness, which is, something that's really important to me. And I'm really interested in that pre-K through 12 STEM program. So again, thank you to all of you for being here tonight and presenting. And I just think that we could just have all of you on the board. So thank you.
I just wanted to jump in and add, I also applied for, in 4 years ago, I applied for the open board position that Marshall ended up ultimately getting, and I believe Rosetta did too. But then in the next election, Rosetta and I ran, and here we sit. So if you're not chosen tonight, still you can join us. And we would love to have, I think, all of you. You guys were all excellent. So I just wanted to add that in.
Any other comments? Marshall?
Yeah, and I think, we get redundant after a while, and it's hard to say, oh, you were all wonderful candidates, and oh, Noel and Jean and Kevin and Nathaniel and Daniel, we liked you very much, as well as all the others who came forward. That's the easy part. The hard part is figuring out how to fill the slot. And that's not easy. That is not an easy task because we have to look at all of you and make a decision. And as Rosetta said, it would be easy to say, all right, let's pick 4 people. I'll volunteer to leave and you can take the position. But
They might take you up on.
it's fine. So I'll take this. No, but I think it does a disservice really to start picking apart each and every one or talking about each and every one because they've done a good job and other people have done a good job. I think they'd all be wonderful
members of the board. I'd be proud to serve with each of you. The one that sort of stuck out to me, in all candor, was Noel, when he talked about the issues that are important to our community that we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. I think those are the ones that are really important that we're going to be focusing on. And so that really stuck with me. It doesn't mean that anybody else who came up and spoke is any less of a candidate or doesn't have as good of ideas. That spoke to me at this portion, because when you get a CV, then you get an opening statement for a couple of minutes, and then you answer some questions on the hot seat. That's not easy either. That particularly stuck out to me. And for that particular reason, I thought you were a wonderful candidate, as all of you are. But I just thought it was worth noting in that regard. So, and I thank you all for making the leap, because that's what it is. It's a leap of faith to try and do something like this.
Can we rank choice vote and then do a top two and vote on that? Or what's the next thing, Amy?
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah, we can, so.
Something like that, or I don't know, I don't know how else to do it.
Unless
You
we
tell me.
have enough
Votes.
unless there's at least 5 votes to carry somebody from the first pass.
Yeah, the number one spot, 5 people select the same person.
Okay, that works too. Okay.
All right, so we'll list our 5, and then Katie will let us know the top 2, unless the top 1,
Has 5.
5. Okay,
In the tallying process, can we keep going with the meeting or no? In the sake of finishing today.
Katie runs the meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so start doing your tallies, not tallies, writing your lists, and Wade will collect them.
Yep, so she can tell you all. You can have a motion. Yes.
We're listing them one to.
Well.
Is there a possibility that we could do a vote?
Yeah, I mean,
Or just-
Marshall, if you want to, Marshall, you could call them, and Jeff, correct me if I'm
I
wrong,
just think we
you could
have-
call a motion.
Might
You
take-
could call a motion to appoint, pick a person. If there's a second, there's a second.
Point A, yeah.
And then we can call a voice vote.
Oh, okay, so it wouldn't be. Let's call a vote and everybody.
Yeah, if someone wants.
You have
It
to
could be-
nominate somebody in particular is what you're saying.
That's
Yep.
correct.
All right. Are we ready to come back? All right, so again, thank you to everyone. So we ranked the candidates and then we added up the scores, and it looks like our top two that we'll be discussing as a board are Kevin and Jean. So thank you to everyone else for participating. The scores were very close, I'll be honest, they were very close, but those were our top two. So now, as far as those two, we did not have 5 1s for either of them. So are there any thoughts regarding either candidate? Anyone want to make a motion or have discussion?
If the consensus of the board looks like Kevin and Jean are kind of the top tier. And so just speaking between the two, I mean, again, between the two of them, again, both very strong candidates for different reasons, but for me, I kind of go back to the fact that Jean has been a career educator, been in the classroom, been an assistant principal. And that's a perspective I think that's important for us to have some representation on the board. So I mean, I guess that's the comment I would make between Jean versus Kevin.
Any other thoughts? Does anyone want to make a motion?
No, I just want to make the point that, you know, I agree that Jean has an education background. Kevin also has a non-traditional education background, which I find very interesting. And the fact that his an anthropology background is also even more interesting to me. So I think they both kind of bring to the board things that none of us have here. So this is a hard one.
I think it's 10 to 11 and we're gonna need to vote, so I'm.
Yes, we should do that.
I move to nominate Jean to the board.
Second.
A motion's been made and seconded. Are there any comments from the board? All right, seeing none, should we do a roll call vote, Katie?
Sure. Mr. Antonio,
Yes.
Mr. Badger,
Paul? He's in his bed asleep. I keep,
I'll keep going.
just keep going, we'll come back.
Yep.
Paul.
Mr. Bleefeld,
Coming off.
Sorry, having trouble unmuting. I vote yes.
Mr. Bleefeld,
Yes.
Miss Kiavachi,
Yes.
Miss Karianakis,
Undecided.
You can abstain.
Abstain.
Dr. Morris,
I used to be last until Steve came on the board. Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Ginsburg.
Yes.
You've 7 yes and 1 abstention. Yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. All right, again, thank you, everyone, and thank you for sticking it out. I feel like this was some form of like hazing or initiation, see who like stuck it out. So thank you for sticking it out with us, and all right, we're gonna move on now. Oh, and I guess Jean, so Eugene will be sworn in sometime this month and join us in January. All right, so we look forward to having you join us up here at the table in January. All right. All right, moving on in our agenda. It's 5 of 11 and we are at our first public comment period. So.
Related to.
Yeah, that was related to the. Let's see, I don't know. Some of these might be second comment period. We do have Amy Hellenic Sese. Is she still here? Okay, anyone online, Katie?
I have no hands raised on Zoom.
Okay. Then we'll move on from first public comment period. We're going to move on to, so here's the actual point where we approve, we already did this, so we can skip this. Approval of resolution W 1423, the Wissahickon School Board Directors support legislation regarding delayed school start times. Deanne, you had a comment regarding this, correct?
Yeah, just really quickly, I'm so sorry. So this is what I wanted to say before 11 o'clock. In 1949, the school code was school starts at 9 a.m. You get an hour for lunch. It ended at 4 p.m. and there was a 15-minute break in the forenoon and afternoon. That's what the school schedule was intended to be, unless school boards changed it. Obviously, we changed it. This House bill that we're going to vote to support, this was proposed by Republican in Pennsylvania, starting with 2627, no secondary school shall begin earlier than 8:15. And this gives us time to figure it out. This would solve a lot of our issues. So I hope we can support this.
I love that you brought this to our attention. I'd motion, do we have to do all of them?
So it's just gonna be 7.2. So do I have a motion?
So moved.
So second.
Sorry, second.
My motion's been made and seconded. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, moving on, I'm gonna have any informational items held over until our next meeting. So we have nothing from superintendent report, assistant superintendent report, we will hold over to January. Board solicitor report appears we have nothing. Board secretary report.
Thank you. Can I please have a motion for approval of action items 11, 1 through 5, and there is no change from the last meeting?
So moved. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Are there any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Board treasurer report.
Thank you. Can I please have a motion for approval of action items 12.1, and there is no change from last meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Are there any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Human resources report, Danielle.
Good evening. Changes from last week's agenda are marked with an asterisk and can be found in bold in the details, and 3 items were added to the agenda today in section 13.1. These include retirements, resignations, appointments, and volunteer additions. All other items were reviewed at last week's work session and have no other changes. This evening, I'm seeking approval for action items 13.1 through 13.8. Thank you.
So moved.
Second.
A motion's made and seconded. Are there any comments or questions? All right, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you. Communications committee, it appears we have nothing, correct?
Correct.
All right, curriculum and technology committee.
No information items this evening. We're going to be seeking a motion to approve action items 15.1 through 15.3. There have been no changes since last week's meeting.
Yeah.
So moved.
Moved. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Are there any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Facilities and Transportation Committee.
We have one action item unchanged from last week, so I'm seeking a motion for approval of action item 16.1.
So moved. Motion's been made and seconded. Are there any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Finance Committee report? Wait.
Thank you. Can I please have a motion to approve items? It says 17.2.
Yeah, because there was a recap informational item.
Okay, 17.2 through 17.14, and there is no change since last meeting.
So moved.
Second.
A motion's made and seconded. Are there any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Policy Committee, it appears nothing, right?
Nothing.
Nothing. And Paul, it doesn't look like we have anything for REOC either, right?
Correct.
Health, wellness, and safety also appears to have nothing, right, Rosetta?
No information, no action.
Okay. Report of board representatives, unless somebody has something urgent to share, I'm just gonna hold those over till January.
Love it.
Oh,
Just come to the holiday dinner Monday.
that's right. Thank you.
RSVP was due, but I'm sure you could still make it happen.
Again, all right, thank you. All right, we're at our second public comment period. I had one person registered, Amy Schultz.
Hi, thank you. My name is Amy Schultz. I live in Lower Gwinnett Township. I wanted to comment on the process surrounding recent revisions to gifted education at the high school. My husband and I have two daughters in grades 9 and 11 who are enrolled in this program. So briefly, the 9th and 10th grade language arts social studies course, which also provides gifted enrichment, is an exceptional course which has been part of the curriculum at Wissahickon High School for decades. This course is unique in its ability to develop critical thinking, research, and writing skills, and to challenge gifted students in a way they have not been challenged before. It has a dedicated following in the community, and former students regard it as one of the most stimulating and influential courses they took at the high school. In that context, I'd like to recap the process surrounding the recent cancellation and then reinstatement of this course from the perspective of a parent. On 11/14, parents of gifted students received an email announcing that starting next school year, the current gifted class would not be offered to incoming 9th graders. The communication informed us that enrolling in honors and AP classes will better prepare our students for the demands of college-level coursework and future career opportunities. Notably, the teachers of the course were not informed of the cancellation until the same time as the parents. As parents, this was the first time we had any inkling that the gifted curriculum was being reevaluated. We were then invited to an informational meeting 2 weeks later. On 11/27, that virtual meeting was held. I was told that approximately 180 people logged on, which shows the depth of the interest in the issue in the community. I would encourage the members of the board, if you have not viewed the recording of that meeting, to do so. Parents and students repeatedly asked for a rationale for why an outstanding course would be canceled and eloquently explained its unique value over and above what honors and AP courses offer. It was apparent that the replacement offerings had not yet been developed. Dr. Schmidt explained that curricular development processes involve student and teacher input, but apparently course cancellation does not. If the committee had solicited student, parent, and teacher input, they would have clearly received the message that they received during that meeting. The meeting concluded after an hour and a half with over 100 unanswered questions. On 11/30, we received an email stating that the plan had been revised to reinstate the current course. And once again, it seems that the teachers were informed at the same time as students and parents. I do appreciate that the administration was receptive to feedback, but I have concerns about the process that did not recognize the value of the course, articulate a good reason for cancellation, have a well-planned replacement course, or incorporate student, family, and teacher input. As further planning ensues, I'd like to see that will incorporate these stakeholders.
Thank you. Katie, is there anyone online?
I don't have any hands raised on Zoom.
All right, then we're at board comments. No one has any comments. Okay. I think I have a motion to adjourn.
Wait, Amy,
Oh, Paul, yeah.
sorry, I just have a quick comment. I know it's late. I'll try to be really quick, but I want to acknowledge the loss of the Wissahickon community of a person that I believe is literally a legend for many within the Wissahickon School District. We lost Larry Wilson, who was the coach of the Ambler Olympic Club, as well as the founder of the Ambler Olympic Club. He was the track and field coach at Gwinnett Mercy High School. He was a track standout at Ambler High School when he was here. He was inducted into he was the AAU cross country national chair and inducted into the Pennsylvania Sports Hall of Fame, Montgomery County chapter. Just a few of the many accolades. Unfortunately, I don't have time to mention them all. But he touched so many people in the Wissahickon community, and particularly in the track and field community, for generations. The Wilson family, in addition to Mr. Wilson, just been a staple in our community, and I just want to acknowledge his passing. He will truly be missed.
Thank you for sharing that, Paul. Any other comments? All right, then can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
All right, all those in
Aye.
favor? Aye. We're adjourned.